This is a massive win for the Port Adelaide Football Club here tonight. It's win number 2, but it's a big win. Hinkley knows, the players know, and the crowd know.
Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. Fuck HOK ball, it's all about port ball, baby. Let's fucking go. I am so keen to get into this. Thank you for joining us, everyone. As always, we really appreciate you being along for the ride. For the first time in a few weeks, we have gathered round and we have bloody conquered Port Adelaide, wounded in this first month, not unlike the American Navy at Pearl Harbor, but proudly resilient. We launched a mission as audacious as that as the American ambush of the Japanese Navy at the Battle of Midway in June of 1942. Port Adelaide coaches broke the HOK ball code, just like the code breakers who figured out those Japanese plans of attack on the Midway Atoll, launching a scintillating first half attack which surprised and sunk the prides of the Hawthorn Navy. Ginnivan, Watson, the Akagi, the Hiryu, whether it be the Japanese fleet or the HOK Mosquito fleet, they all went down. 18-13, 121 to 14-7, 91 was the final. Port Adelaide is 3-0 in gather round. And Jamie, it really begs the question, can we play Hawthorn every fucking week for the rest of our lives? Because I'm here for it. Let's go.
Can we just play that first half over and over and over again until the last Saturday in September?
Yeah, let's go.
Hello to you. And hello everyone else. Now, Dave, I've got to ask you a question. If I was to tell you before the game that Willie Rioli would kick 3 goals, that Mitch Georgiadis would kick 3 goals, I think you see where I'm going with that. If we want disposals inside 50s, fucking every key statistical marker, who do you think wins that game?
I reckon even if it's Hawthorn, it's about Port Adelaide by 30 points, you know?
Yeah. You would be right. Yeah, obviously. A callback to last week's episode, but yeah, no, fantastic night. Fantastic round of football. We may never lose again. Footy's good again. Sack Hinkley. Jason Cripps is a disgrace. I love football.
Yeah. That's a nice little shout out to our sentiments as we stood on the outer at Lyndoch on Saturday too. Just football.
Football, yeah, go football. And what a venue, what a day, what a weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my
still
first
recovering.
experience of gathering. Yeah, no, I'm still. Yeah, I mean, it's even Sunday night, getting home, watching Liverpool get a step closer to the title, and watching the start of Oscar Piastri going out and eventually winning. I fell asleep during the race, though. It was just a good weekend of sports for me. Real turnaround from the last few weeks prior, but it's certainly with the most important part of it being Port Adelaide. And the fact that this was the one that, you know, out of all the results that I'm looking at in my own little sports spectrum, this was the one that was most unlikely for me and all of us Port Adelaide fans. It was a real amazing finish to gather round, a real great atmosphere down at Adelaide Oval to close out gather round. And obviously with all the storylines around it, Port Adelaide came out and did what we have kind of, and you and I, and it's a real pat ourselves in the back moment. We kind of talked about the fact that these little signs were there against St Kilda about what this team can do, some of the positives that were in that, and some of the things to look forward to if this team can get it together. It really was just, I think Connor Rosie actually mentioned it in a post-match of this Hawthorn game when he was interviewed. I don't know if this was Fox Sports or 7. I can never remember which one I've been watching, but I'm
the same. Yeah.
One of the networks, we're not affiliated with any of them, so who cares? He said that, look, we were pretty happy with kind of some of the things we're getting together in those last 3 quarters. It was really just that first quarter against St Kilda and then some of those little in-between moments. But overall, like he said, we started doing some of the things we want to do and play the football we want to play. And it kind of all just came together in just an amazing first half. And, you know, we'll get to the lines and stuff like that. But just overall, that first half was all the things we've been talking about as far as that in the negative sense of a bit too much dawdling when the ball is in hand, a little, you know, malaise in decision making, but everything was just so crisp, and the intent, and overall, it's just the most simplest things: the intent, the endeavor, the pride in the jumper and all those things, that was on show in that first half, and it was a real nice thing to just an amazing thing as a fan to sit there on the hill and watch. Even though I never got comfortable because you always knew Hawthorn was going to come at some point, and indeed they did.
Yeah, we discussed that I think at halftime as well on the night.
Yeah,
That you knew they were going to hit back. To what magnitude was just the only question.
yeah, and they certainly did. But that first half, a modern AFL can go a little bit like this too. You've kind of got to take maximize your impact on the scoreboard when you've got the run of the play, and we certainly for once did that this year, and ultimately it turned into too much. I think it was when I was watching the replay, it got mentioned when it got to 69 points, which was just amusing to my teenage self. That was the biggest comeback in the history. So anything that was going to happen, and it teased for a bit, but ultimately we got ourselves so far in front that Hawthorn had to play a flawless second half to get through, and they didn't, and we come away with a 5-goal win, which we would have taken every day of the week leading into the game. We would have taken a 1-point win, so to win by 5 goals relatively comfortably, even if there was a little scare, was as perfect of a result as you could ask for against a team that had everyone had up in lights for the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, and regardless of how the game unfolded in the second half, which, like you said, was a little bit of a scare, was a little bit frustrating, a touch, uncomfortable, but no one could have expected what was about to unfold at the first siren of the game. I was flabbergasted and exasperated with what I was seeing. And like you mentioned, and like we discussed last week on the main show and the squad show, is there's been signs there, but the biggest thing is we just had to use the ball better and piece every slight improvement or every statistical marker together. And I was blown away. And it was just a barrage. Hawthorn were in disarray. They couldn't get their hand on the football. I was sitting up the very, very back of the eastern stand to begin with, and I was just, like I said, I was overwhelmed with joy, particularly, and a shout out to like good boy, good footy energies, who is apparently no longer creating content for whatever reason, and if Brad Hollis is still out there, hope he's doing well. But that's like, it got to a point where that's all I could just profess out. I was like, just good football. Just you're cheering good football, yet like you're not even like, you just overcome with appreciation for what you were seeing. And I felt like I was sitting right on top of the ground where I was at that point in time, just watching the play unfold, just watching us absolutely stick to task for 2 quarters, particularly. Like it was a non-contest there for the best part of the first half. They didn't look like scoring at all, and like I said, every piece of play seemed to work in our favor. And the only goal that they got up until about 2 minutes left in the second quarter was from a turnover, where Kane Farrell tried to kick 10 meters for some reason to Travis Boak. Whatever. But yeah, I was just cheering, good football, good football, good football. It was ridiculous. Could not have imagined what was there to see on Sunday night. Hoped for a good combative game of football. And like has been mentioned in the aftermath of the game, like a Ken emotion game or whatever you want to call it is part of our purview. But to that magnitude against this team, I'm still kind of blown away by it. And then because, like you said, because we afforded ourselves that much of a head start, we could still play with a bit of not unaccountability in the second half, but we still gave them teasing distance to try and still play our game plan in the second half. If the score was closer, potentially at halftime, and at 3/4 time for that matter. I think our defensive structure would have been a lot different in that second half and last quarter. But we just stuck to our guns. They threw a few punches back. It got to an annoying situation, but we did the business. And that was the good thing about it, is every time they kicked a couple of goals, we just kicked one back, just kept holding that distance. And it was a bit like that Geelong game, to be honest, last year at Cardinia Park, where we just blew them out of the water and they were chasing tail for the best part of the second half. And we just kind of just kept them at arm's length. And that one ended up much, much, much more close than we all would have wanted after that start. And I guess that's what makes this a little bit more satisfying, is we just blew this team out of the water. They came back like you would have thought they would, but at the end of the day, through a bit of Sam Powell Pepper brilliance, this is right at the death, and a bit of cheekiness from Willie Rioli. We sit in comfort and get to close off Gather Round with a win.
Yeah, it's quite amazing when we sit there and think, oh, I got a little close, but the closest they got, which is close enough, but it was 22 points. So they still were at a point where they needed 4 goals without reply to even edge in front. And ultimately, like you said, we had afforded ourselves that buffer that meant they had to play flawless footy. And they still just didn't. We were still getting enough of the ball to be able to, when we go forward, and their defense just wasn't doing a great, like our forward line was functioning really well, whether it be the Smalls or obviously Mitch Georgiades leading, with Ollie Lord playing again a second week of a really good foil to him, and being able to stretch their defense. Barras and Battle and co were under duress all night, so they were winning some battles here and there. It was really good footy to watch as far as the battles go, but overall, Mitch kicked his 3 goals too. Ollie Lord ended up with a couple. He still misses,
and he very much should have had 3 on the board with the shots that he earned himself.
Yes. Yeah.
He kind of kicked the belly out of one, which was a regulation snap from the pocket, and then faded one straight in front after a good piece of play in the lead. So, like you said, a good foil nonetheless, but left a couple out there, Ollie.
Yeah. He's still probably the one, but he's young and developing, so he'll figure it out. But he's overall, I'm still happy with what he's doing. But yeah, we afforded ourselves that. The fact that they were never comfortable enough in defense to know they could probably come back all the way back, and they made a good fist of it, and they did have the benefits of some umpiring that was very, very one way. I think at one point when I saw the stat, it was like 13-2 in the second half for free kicks, and it just wasn't.
Yeah, and
that wasn't that kind of game. Like, they were there both ways if it was going to be that.
I don't think any game is that kind of game, to be honest.
Well, yeah, fair, but
and no one's disputing the fact that. Yeah, sorry, you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's like you'd have to be a really one-sided game as far as pressure and stuff goes for it to be that one. Like, one team's just always catching the other one, holding the ball. I don't know. It would just have to be, but then sometimes then there's going to be over-ambitious.
It's quite the anomaly.
Yeah, it's really weird. And the overall free kick count, I think, for the night ended up 21-12. But yeah, it was 13-2 in the second half at one point. Obviously, both of those metrics Hawthorn's favour comfortably. So, yeah, and they just got the benefit of some soft calls. I said to you on the night early in the game, it seemed like they were letting a lot go, and I was kind of like, okay, that's fine if that's the way it's going to continue. But then there was a lot that went their way in moments that allowed them to get a few back, and whether it be Lloyd Meek and on Jordan Sweet and Lloyd Meek just getting the benefit of the grappling, or it was just. I don't know if they get quite as close if they don't get a couple of those, but I'm not doing umpire blaming or something like that. But it is a stat that was quite a stark contrast for that second half, considering it was 2 teams that were battling away pretty hard. Pressure both ways.
There's a lot of feeling in it.
Yeah,
that's for sure. That's an understatement, actually.
I would have thought in the first half we would have given away more with our pressure being up on them. Well, that would have been the one, but in the second half, it's where they came from, which we weren't quite as hot on it, and I guess maybe Hawthorn were getting more of the ball, and we were starting to get a little bit cleaner with it in the second half to their benefit for coming back. But yeah, it was a game that the umpires, we were a little bit testy on the hill at one point when it started getting close and the calls kept on going that way.
It was just annoying because it had the potential. Like, I'd never thought that we would lose. It just became annoying enough to maybe sully the victory.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think yeah, just with a flurry of goals. And look, to be honest, like we said on the night after that Sampao Pepper reply and then the double goal situation, we missed two very, very easy shots on goal in general play, albeit directly after that, that could have just pushed it straight back out to 50 points. Shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Goals that we would have kicked in the first half just faded. And so that's what I mean. It had the potential to maybe sully the victory overall, but in the end, there's nothing but praise from all angles, and that's completely fair enough in my opinion. And again, like it's just interesting. There's a lot of points to this match that were forecasted, like to toot our own horns, in that we were discussing the same talking points leading into this game were the exact same talking points leading into the semi-final. You know, if we win ground ball gets, like just fucking win ground ball gets, and we smashed it in that regard. Like you mentioned off the top, just using the ball a bit more simply overall, not over possessing it. And then, a point that I made was if we do that, then we can actually bring our smaller forwards into the game on top of the tall duo that are seemingly working well together after a couple of game sample size. And all of those things fell into place. It's just footy is an interesting game like that sometimes, and how it manifests out from week to week, and not just from a Port Adelaide sense, from an AFL sense. It's going to keep going like that for the rest of the year, and that's why you kind of got to, with more games than ever, with a more even competition than ever, that's why you got to stay the course a little bit, and that's why I refuse to be too reactionary, particularly to a loss. Obviously, I'm going to be over the moon for a victory, and a victory of this type. But yeah, it's important to stay the course and just look at things a bit pragmatically, because in the end, those things that we forecast a little bit or hoped for came to fruition, thankfully enough.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And we've talked about the fine margins in those, like in the previous weeks, with the team struggling, the 1% off that they are, and what the reasons why that might be. Because a lot of the metrics in the game overall, as the game finished, weren't too much. You know, well, as you mentioned last week, as far as our stats last week, we should have won that one comfortably too. But you know, we were 71% disposal efficiency, or 71.7 to their 69.5%. Inside 50 efficiency was really crucial, and we'll talk about the lines more and the forward line in more depth soon. But 54.1 versus 47.9. But it's just edging out those key metrics, like 144 to 140 contested overall across the game, fairly even. But considering our average for the year was 121.5 versus their 136.2, we've gone well above and kind of shown what we know, that we can be better contested. We've just struggled to hit that sometimes, and you know the reasons for that, the Ken emotion games, whatever it may be. But the turnover battle was crucial as well. We edged that as well, 63 to 67. Obviously, better for like the lower number for us. So, and they're not crazy numbers. It's just we've been worse in those departments, sometimes quite worse in some of those weeks previous that we played really down below our level, and we just hit those metrics against a good team. And that's sometimes all you have to do is just even the battle there, and sometimes, you know, shade it. The stoppage game, which I've been complaining about for weeks, was brilliant. So we just turned around a lot of those metrics, just enough to get ourselves the win against a very good team. Whether it's, you know, what domino effect Will Day had on that team. We're not a Hawthorn podcast, but we did mention that they were missing one, while we had one come back obviously a week ago, but one really come back into form this week, and kind of the entire shift with how we used some of our prime movers this week.
Will Day didn't play in the semi-final either. That's worth noting.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's a very good point to make too, because they were able to match us that day. So
I clearly missed him. He's a gun.
Yeah.
Would love to have anyone would love to have a Will Day on their team. He is injury prone though. But he didn't play the semi, but he is a key out, and it's worth mentioning, of course.
Yeah, they just still had some decent performances by the end of the night from some of their guns, but we match as long as you can. You just have to either around match or just better the other team. You don't have to kill them in contested possession. You don't have to kill them in turnovers. In a game like this, you just have to be better and then clear all your other metrics a bit and be decent with the ball. And there was what I noticed most of the night was trust in team. Like the one thing it seems like everyone's kind of wanting to telegraph in the previous weeks, telegraph the ball, make sure their teammate knows exactly what they're going to do. Whereas there was a little bit of trust returned with some of those real quick handballs, some of those those quick triangle handballs on the wing or at the half back that then opened up to the kicker to kick forward to a half forward contest, and they were happy to bring it to stoppage. They were doing a lot of things and trusted that they could win the stop. Like we spanked in stoppage clearances by plus 10, 34-24. So we trusted ourselves around the ball, trusted our ability to, in those moments, to get the quick handballs out, no-look handballs or just one-look handballs, and they're real quick. Like sometimes it was receive and handball almost in the same motion. Like you said on the night, it was like almost receive to throw in the same motion. You were quite cheeky on the that.
Yeah. And that's a bit of the
Ollie did
AFL,
get called.
you know.
Was it Ollie that got called for a throw at one?
Yeah, he did. I think he got called twice.
Okay, so we didn't get away with it.
And it was like there's been a bit more egregious examples of that. But and I think you made mention on the night. I can't remember if it was someone who drew a high contact free kick. But you were just like, oh, well, everyone else has been fucking doing it to us for so long. It's about time we
it was HORNE-FRANCIS.
Get our own back or something like that. Yeah. HORNE-FRANCIS was like front of my mind because I know that he definitely got a couple on the night. But it's a bit like the throwing as well. Like Western Bulldogs have been throwing the football for fucking a half a decade, I swear, and getting away with it. So yeah, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If again, it's a game of fine margins, like you said. So if you can find a loophole, for want of a better term, then you might as well use it.
Well, if they're trying to handball, it just ends up being a throw, and they get away with it 8 out of 10 times. And they're moving the ball well.
Yeah. And the AFL changed the adjudication of a handball where it used to be that you have to propel it with your fisted hand, whereas now you just have to make contact with the ball with a fisted hand.
So some of the movement generation can come from the throwing
the whole exactly whether you like that or not is another story completely for the purists of the game, but that's the adjudication as it sits right now. So again, if every other team is going to use it against us, like drawing high free kicks,
it's made the game, like you look at those over the top,
only within our rights to do it.
Yeah, some of those over the top handballs and stuff like that do get their generation from just taking the contact from
it blurs the line.
Yeah, but it's entertaining as long as if they are making contact with that formally propelling fist, then it's we've got some good proponents of that, and I'm sure we'll certainly talk about it at some point throughout the game, throughout the review, because there was a lot of great handballing and whether it be over the back or just sideways around the body, kind of. There was a lot of great handball examples of what you can do with that, and why there is I guess part of the game plan has been to try to utilize the handball as a weapon, as a way to open up the field, and we did it well on the night, whilst also having a really good, the kicking game was really good as well. Kick to handball ratio was still not nearly as much as I think it was the Richmond game. It was 1-1. I think we talked about a few weeks ago. We haven't gotten to those numbers yet. The kick to handball ratio for both teams actually was it was 1.34 to 1.32. Port and Hawthorn, Port being 1.34. So both teams kind of played. It was a very good, I guess, battle of similar styles, I guess, in that sense. But again, just those fine margins is what it was, where it was won for me, and it's something I know this team has the ability to do. The contested ball, we're all lamenting it over the last few weeks because we know these players are better. And I don't know if it's worth talking, maybe just talking about separately before we actually talk about the individual lines. The move, I think, just to talk about it in its own, because it's important enough to talk about as its own storyline of the game, I think, is both the move of Rosie to halfback, which a lot of people have talked about. I mean, even in the last few weeks, there's been some on Twitter and whatnot, talking about that he has done that and whether that will help that malaise, as well as just the midfield mix. And I think it did really work because Rosie to halfback opened up some more opportunities for the likes of Willem Drew and co, but even Jackson Mead in the middle had Jackson Mead and Willem, who we both said were a bit floaty the last few weeks, really locked into the game, were more in and under, more defined roles. And so the midfield was better on the weekend, and that was without Rosie. And it's not saying Rosie's not a good midfielder, obviously he is, but he has a particular skill set in what he can do and how he plays the game. And
every time you say that, I just think of Liam Neeson in Taken. I
will find you and I will
set of skills.
I will intercept your kick at halfback.
And I will kick goals on you.
Yeah. I'll take an intercepting.
Well, because in the end, he was the top champion data rated player at 23.2. So as we discussed last week, when you're pushing into the 20s, you're having an elite week in the AFL competition. It was an inspired move. Some people on Twitter have been calling for it for quite a while, and pundits in the footy media landscape. But the question was whether they were ever going to pull the trigger. And obviously some people were apprehensive. I haven't really been hot on that decision myself, even though we all know, well, those particularly in South Australia know that, yes, he did in fact win a premiership at North Adelaide, playing off a halfback as a 17-year-old. But does that translate into AFL football? What is it, six or 7 years later? But ball don't lie, isn't it? It wasn't that. In the whole night?
Did yell that on the night at one point, yeah. When they got a Hawthorn got a free at some point and kicked it immediately out in the full, and I just yelled ball don't lie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So many great memories developed over the weekend, I must say, just to go back to the gather round as a whole, but and not to get too deep into the weeds about Connor Rosie's stats, but it's more just the vibe for now. And like he did a post-match interview, like you mentioned, and
on Fox 7
also
Sports.
alluded to the fact, I mean, what was that?
I said on Fox 7 Sports.
Fox 7. Yeah. Whatever it may be. Yeah. And, I don't know if he was, I don't even think, even after he's had a fucking one of his career best games, particularly as captain, I don't even think he was still over enthused about the fact that he was moved to a halfback. But he did mention that the defense is somewhat young and inexperienced as a whole, so it helps to marshal them down back. Obviously, Aaliyah's down there, and there are some experienced players and some gifted players down there, but the likes of a Josh Sin, I feel, benefited from Connor being down there to offer some direction, and all the attributes are there to see. And he mentioned the fact, like I said, he mentioned the fact that they're a younger defense. So being able to help just watch the game from the back line.
It's quarterback role. That's what it is. It's a real quarterback role. You can sit back behind the play and watch everything unfold and be, captain,
generate it from there.
Yeah, and still score some touchdowns as he did. So, some deep throws.
Throw some Hail Marys. But obviously, this was a bit like Sam Mitchell and whatnot can say that they had a thought that he would move to halfback, or they want. I don't really believe that. Further than him, because I wasn't there for the warm up. He may have been warming up with the back line. I'm not sure. Someone else may know.
Apparently,
that may have
was,
been the only
think.
brief indicator. Yeah,
he was. I was, as you know, and I was nursing one hell of a hangover as I went down to that game. So I was just standing on the hill with a gin and tonic in my hand, just trying to feel alive again. I was kind of like keeping an eye on the warm ups, but it was very much like when your eyes are watching, but your brain's just half switched off.
That was me at the St Kilda game the week before.
Gather round in Linddock was I deleted half the beers in Linddock, I think. So Yeah, it was, but yeah, it was an inspired move either way, and it, like I said, it opened up the midfield a bit as well. And I mean, did you have anything else of in particular general note, or did you want to get into it? Because I know we're kind of starting to tease it, and
I
I feel
think
like
it's
it's
yeah. I was going to say I think it's a good segue into the defensive line.
yeah,
Speaking about the move Rosie to half back.
yeah. Now let's start on the defense because I think again we had the discussion on the night, and even though we'll talk about Rosie again, but I think the core of the defense again in Asava and Aaliyah. I said to you when we were hanging out on the hill that I have felt so much better with Asava back there since he's been back. I think our Aaliyah is feels more comfortable just knowing he's got another big body down there. Asava is playing a reasonable role down there. He's never going to be an All Australian, but I think he's playing quite well and genuinely providing some, he's you have to be accountable for him as a forward line and understand that he's going to make your forwards accountable, and that's just even in that simple one binary metric of big body on big body. That's better than what we were getting out of the makeshift back line previous to him coming back. So just in that, I think they both performed really well. Aaliyah was imperious again on the night. He throws his body at everything and is just an elite mark. But I think Asava had plenty of good moments as well. So just for those two, just to start off, I think as a core spine as the big bodies in the back line, I think they handled the back line really well. As far as just, I mean, the only one that got off the chain against us, and we'll talk about the missing players in a moment in the likes of the Watsons and Ginnevans, but Gunston got off the chain, but it was like just I think the
Joe
Asava,
the Gooses on a few occasions.
the Sav Mega fan account was just hot on it, just like the worst bag of six in the history of the sport and stuff like that. Which look, he kicked six. You got to be there to kick him, but there was a few out the back, and yeah, like you said, the Gooses, and just he had a good set shot from 50. I think at the start of.
Had a couple of nice set shots to be honest. He's Jack Gunston, like one of the more accurate kicks in the competition across his career.
Yeah, I don't know what that says about
certainly a player that I respect.
Yeah, he left the Crows, so we've got to respect that.
And made them. Well, he didn't make them. They were childish enough to take his best first year player award off of him for doing so. So I also love the involved making the Crows look immature.
Yes, which we know they are. So yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so respect Jack Gunston.
Yeah, yeah. But otherwise, he was the only one that really stood up in lights as far as goal kicking. Lloyd Meeks too was, somewhat gifted. So, but he still had to be there to finish him. But
from both from free kicks inside 50, and particularly the second of those, Jordan Sweet did not look happy whatsoever. And
it was a real what the fuck am I?
On one hand, you can kind of see you can see what the umpire's looking at, but there is also a balance, like a yin to the yang. Like, one person's being held by the jumper while the other person's being held by both of their arms. It does probably paint a little bit of a picture in regards to Lloyd Meeks' presence on the field, just as an AFL view, and the value of having such a big indomitable ruckman. But yeah, takes nothing away from Sweet. But yeah, just moving back to the defense, and yeah, like you mentioned, Radagalia and Aaliyah, from a structural point of view, Aaliyah is doing Aaliyah things. I think he started off this year how we probably would have liked him to start off last year. And when we say that he finished the year last year in All Australian form, he's definitely building into that a lot earlier this season, which is a fantastic sign and a credit to him that he just keeps on keeping on. And we obviously haven't had some great games defensively, but like we've said, it's been more up the ground as a result of that. And him and his colleagues have had to weather the storm more than you would have liked. But again, for Asava, again, another game, and both of these guys spent the entire game on the field, by the way. and both used it at above 84% disposal efficiency from 9 and 13 disposals respectively. But that's the simplicity of the way they're playing their football, and in particular Radicalier, because he is the one, for better or for worse, that does draw some attention from the mistakes that he makes. But to be honest, I don't think he did have any of those moments in this game in particular. And I've got to, and as an extension of that, in a contested marking situation, he's only been given one as a statistical marker. But if he's in front, it's a bit like when Charlie Dixon was around and he would be in front of his defender. If Asava's got front position, I have full confidence that he's in the best spot to mark it. And take on that marking opportunity. Obviously, if he's coming from the back or the side, he's spoiling it, which just furthers that keeping it simple mantra. He had 6 spoils on the night, which led the team. So those are the things. It's just like stick to task. Don't try and be any more than what you are. Play to your strengths, and that was a bit of a theme coming off of the back of the St Kilda loss. Is what we wanted the entire team to do, is just kind of play a game style that enhances your strengths or is predicated on your strengths, and don't try and be more than what you actually are as a footballer. And if you want to be more, just give it to someone who has a different skill set to you, and that's the most pleasing thing. Probably one of those Gunston opportunities was a mark close towards goal where Asava kind of ran himself around in rings a little bit. And I think he was trying to get in a position to spoil it, but then just going back to that, well, I actually think he would have been in a decent position to try and challenge for a mark. Obviously, if that goes wrong, then you've got the thing that's going to be clipped up by certain people, either in the media or on social media. But it's just allowing our small to mid defenders to do their work as well, when our tall guys are leading the aerial charge, as it were.
Yeah, they each had 8 intercept possessions as well, and only so that's 16 between them, and then combined between them only 3 turnovers. So they kind of, as you said, they used the ball really well at a good percentage, taking the marks. I think it's 12 marks between them as well, and the 16 intercept possessions, only 3 turnovers. So if you're getting the 2 tools to kind of perform at that level with their time on the field, along with the smalls kind of, and just in the way we set up, it's amazing that Ginnivan and Watson only had 21 disposals between them. Obviously, no goals. There was no. The only ones of these aeroplanes was in was from.
And hasn't that brought on a life of its own? Airplane silly.
Oh, it's incredible. You were pulling out a few early somewhere in the third quarter, and you started seeing it get shown on the screen later on as the game went.
There were so many people up in the eastern stands, like before I came down at halftime, that were getting it going real early in the game. Brave. But it just took on a life of its own.
Yeah, it was great though. But it's amazing. I mean, I expected one of them to have at least an impact, but neither of them were seen at all. They just were non-existent, and I think that comes down to partly. I mean, we've talked about it a lot when we're down. It's just like he poured, they didn't have, but they did get some. Some more forward time in forward half going in the second half, but those two still were just unsighted and unable to make an impact on the game wherever they.
And Bergman was off.
Yeah, I was about to. I did mean to.
Which again, that, you would have thought.
Yeah,
you would have thought that would again give him another window to take an opportunity. But like you said, donuts.
Yeah, I think Lockie Jones had a really, really good game. He had 7 intercept possessions. Used it at 86.
Love Lockie's game.
Yeah, 86%. Can't just try looking for his marks number because he took a lot of just one.
Well, the thing for me for Lockie, thing for me, great call. The thing for me though is his ground ball game, because I think the marks, again, we've discussed this a few times. The marking side of thing has become an insidious, like incorrect theme, like associated with Lockie Jones, but. I've said this many times before. I think he's actually a good marker of the football, and I think if you put his whole body of work together, that would show that. But for me, and I think this is where more people put the knock on him, is his ground ball game, and in particular that one touch, two touch
Yeah.
balance is he had 6 ground ball gets, which is equal, what's that, 5th for Port Adelaide. But it was the nature in which he was attacking the ball at ground level, taking it cleanly and bursting out of congestion. And his disposal is quite sublime when he's in that mood.
Mm-hmm.
He can kick it on a dime, but he can also find some interesting handball avenues by hand, I should say, to again let others get out into space, which I really appreciate. And it's what we have all forecasted, as long as his ground ball game is in good order, which it seems to be in the several games that he's had the opportunity to play the entire game out. Obviously, Collingwood game is one that he'd rather forget. He got injured as well. Didn't play the Essendon game, but I think that's a warming note on the early parts of his season, and it's what we expect more of, because there's a lot of raps for Lockie, or raps on Lockie, and I think I saw him listed in the best players on the AFL website as well,
Oh yeah,
which
that's
he obviously didn't get any coaches' votes, but to get yourself in the best players, I don't know who is the adjudicator of that, if it's just the journalist writing the match summary or
Mm.
whatnot. But it probably paints a little bit of a picture as to kind of how valued his role was on the game. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
he
I
doesn't need
can't
to be an
fault
out and
it.
out
Yeah,
superstar. It's
yeah,
just to play his role.
exactly. And then in those fine margins where you can actually win it, get a real handle on a game, and actually be really really clean with the ball and be a plus point going forward as well. Yeah, like you said, his kicking at times is quite. He's got a sublime kick. We just haven't seen it consistently enough in the side. As far as his time in the side, it's not that he hasn't actually been pretty good when he's in there. And then yeah, he doesn't mind getting involved in the handball chain here and there as well, and get involved in the cut and thrust going forward. So yeah, he when it came down to the moments where he could take a mark in defence and just kind of like I think it was one early doors before anyone had even scored.
Very early, their first
Scored, he's
clearance.
just sat right back there in the kind of the hole
Mm.
at the top of the 50 and just taken a mark that kind of just. I remember even just seeing it and just being like, okay, that's one that might have got dropped last week or the week
Oh.
in the first quarter. So like, and not just by him, I just mean everyone. Like that was just like early moment of okay, there's that's good, simple mark, but and then obviously it went forward and nice Joe Richard set shot later on, which get to the forward line, but kind of really got me going as far as we're locked in. But yeah, overall, like just a great defensive effort to stop, and it was a full. I mean, if you just talk about the full team defense, just even the stopping them coming out from their defense, like the full court press, so to speak, to stop them moving the ball and being able to switch the ball the way they want to and move the ball forward. The team defense in every line, as a note, was great as well. Uh, kind of manning up when you need to, and just cutting off their space and avenues for switching the ball, or whether and just making them taking the shot down the line and be like, yeah, our stoppage game was on point, and we'll be like, yeah, we'll get into a contest on the wing or your half forward line, bring it to stoppage, and then we're gonna get out the back, and you're gonna be dealing with us down forward again. So it was a great team defense overall as well, just to stop what they're doing at any point on the field, apart from their little run in the second half.
Yeah, it was an interesting piece of analysis that came out of the game by the people who are actually paid to do this thing, and how we matched up man on man and really squeezed them into. Yeah, you saw at one point Jarman Impey had the ball on a halfback or a back pocket, and he's looking to switch it, and he's looking at every possible angle where he could, and he even has the look on his face like, "Fuck, I can't do it. Like it's not there, it's not here." And then inevitably he had to kick down the line, and just that whole man on man. Like obviously it's quite trivial to credit a team playing man on man because it's just somewhat foreign now in modern football, but how, whether it be for an entire game or portions of the game, it still holds merit, particularly if your team is better suited to play that style of defense. And for forever and a day, we've kind of lamented the fact that we're easy to kick a goal out the back of, and this is heavily weighted to the first half. But that man on man, get it to a contest or a stoppage, and then back our midfield to just win the stoppage, burst through the likes of JHF, Zach Butters to burst through a stoppage and get it going back the way we want it to. It's really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how often we implement this kind of change in defensive structure going forward in the rest of our games, particularly against sides who do like to switch it and play the running game like a Hawthorn does.
Yeah. That'll be it's my thing, probably where I'm, tempering expectation is like, I need to see this, this kind of ingenuity against each team, going forward now as well. It's one thing to figure it out against Hawthorn. You've got to, figure out each and again, it's just bring that intensity and application to the game and the defense, because there was a lot of moments where it was just the 1%ers and those efforts that made the difference in little moments here and there, and again, just that trust in the teammates as far as the getting the ball through a contest and stoppage and whatnot, and being able to trust that the handball receiver will be there, and then when the kick goes forward, that the next contest will be hit with the same kind of application and intensity. So, I don't know do you have any more notes on the defensive efforts, or I mean, obviously we talked about Rosie before, but still just an inspired kind of move to have him kind of link off halfback and provide that cut and thrust going forward. His intercept game was really good. He took a lot of big marks and had the few 1%ers and whatnot out there on the right range along halfback or even up the field, because he was able to get up the field a fair bit with the way the game was going. But his efforts just as an intercepting defense, like he might, like we've talked about it a lot, and I think we can feel vindicated in the fact that his defensive efforts and what he can do when he's at halfback, even in moments in previous times, we've noticed it and seen that he can and often provide some good defensive half pressure, and it often is shown in the defensive half pressure act stat that even when he's not playing down there, he gets down there a lot and provides that. But in this one, he did that well and didn't actually end up as high in the pressure acts this week because he wasn't in the middle as much. But
I was thinking that while you were talking, made the move, behind the ball, and pressure acts suffer as a result. But I'm sure you take the ball into set marks.
Yeah, most of those pressure acts were
in the defensive.
So still playing. He's still doing the role.
4 intercept marks, keeping your main opponent goalless in Ginnivan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tick, tick, tick. Highest rated player on the field. Yeah. It's wide move. Just to end off that line though, and on Rosie, it was a point I was somewhat making earlier, is that it was a fresh magnet change. So now opposition teams will have to do their homework and how they attack him, which is not a surprise move anymore. It's a bit like Asava going forward last year. It seemed inspired at the time, and it paid off initially, but then the more time that he spent in that position, the more diminishing returns we got. So that'll be the interesting watch for the time being. But then they have the fantastic lever to pull where they can just put him back in the midfield if need be. And obviously if we get injuries, then there's that flexibility too. But can't ask for much more, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. It was, I think the Asava going forward one was like one where it's just like, well, we're just going to try this because it's out of desperation. And need, and he still, while he was a threat up forward, he didn't blow the game open or anything like that. Whereas Connor Rosie down back is so damn talented and one of obviously a dual Australian, all those talent metrics he has, it might be an up and down game depending on how teams attack him, but then there's so many other weapons around as far as our midfield operating better as well with that kind of change and some of the other roles. And it's good to segue into going into the midfield. That dynamic of just being so deep in midfield talent and being able to utilize whatever, and Rosie having that skill set that he does, being able to rotate him to halfback and give those others a bit more of a defined role. And obviously, Butters being back is huge. Like we wouldn't have been pulling that lever if Butters wasn't fit, I don't think. I just don't know if you can. Or
It's a
maybe
great
you would,
call.
maybe you do, but you still don't. You don't get as much
You
success.
can, but I don't know if you do.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you see as much success if Butters isn't kind of being able to go as the vice captain now. He's now becomes de facto. I am the captain now in the midfield, um, and then just be able to kind of the foil for like his combativeness, and then just the bull that was Jason Horne-Francis in the middle as well. He was just absolutely trouncing through. Like every time there was a stoppage or whatever, it was either him or Wines, or Willem was getting in there as well for the inside. But there was really Horne-Francis was just looking to crash through every contest and take the ball. And we were talking about those high tackles, and there's just in this stoppage and clearance game, it's just like he draws those because he's making that contest his, and like it makes everyone else have to react to what he's doing, and even
Panic.
yeah, it's incredible. Like we talk about fear factor with some of the forwards, but it's a fear factor for an
Fuck yeah.
opposition when Horne-Francis is playing that way. Is that they're seeing him line up kind of he's prowling outside the contest as the ball's being thrown in or thrown up or whatever, and they just know he's coming, and whoever's got to be accountable for him kind of doesn't know. And I think you shouted multiple times on the night from the hill, like, you can't tackle him. And you
can't.
because there was even a moment where he's being tackled, but because they've just got him around the hips, because they're probably trying not to, he's got his arms out and he kind of looks around for a second, and there's some Hawthorn fans shouting ball, but he's kind of just looking and he goes, oh, handball over there.
He makes it. He makes it just seem like a minor inconvenience that there's someone just hanging off his hips. It's just like, yeah, it's just like he's, I don't know what analogy to make, but it's like he's got his shirt stuck on a doorknob or something like that, or certain door handles that you just get caught and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, and then you flick the fabric from your clothes off of it and just keep on as you were, I guess. That's just you just and they made note of it in the commentary, like when he's in that mood, you just cannot tackle him, and that's why the comparisons have been made to Dangerfield. And even Kane Corn said at JHF's best, he will be Dangerfield, but with a much, much better kick, which is frightening for the competition. But just coming back to this game, when he's in that mood, when he's steam rolling through a stoppage, good luck. And the best option you may have as a defense is to commit a professional foul and deliberately take him high, or leg him or something like that, because otherwise he's going to burst away, and because he is such a good disposer of the ball, if that's even a bloody word, he's going to damage you. He's going to put it in a position that is going to punish you if you let him go. So I mean, you started off talking about the midfield and Rosie moving back and looking at our midfield depth. I mean, it's not a bad position to be in when you've got a top 10 player in the AFL, a Brownlow medal winner who's a ball in his own right and top 5 for disposals in the competition thus far.
Yeah.
One of the best taggers in the competition, and then an up-and-coming Patrick Dangerfield with a better kick. Like, you're just blessed with riches there. And I guess that goes with the criticism of how poorly they were doing overall for our losses so far. Is like, we know what we've got there. And again, to quote Kane Corns, just the balance of the midfield, I think, looks better because Rosie was spending more time behind the ball. So you had your dynamic midfielder in Butters and JHF, but then you had your balls like a Wines and a Drew, on top of the fact that Drew kept Newcomb to fuck all in the first half, all at the same time. And that allows you to nurse in an up-and-comer like Christian Moraes, who I thought started the game well, maybe getting a bit of tired legs perhaps, or just maybe that's just AFL football. And then, like you mentioned before, it allows Mead a bit more opportunity to kind of play his trade, and he was a beneficiary of 3 shots on goal.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great running goal that he had in that first quarter as we started to build. And that's what you get from having the midfield mix right, as you start getting those goals from when midfielders are chipping in for goals and your halfback is like as Rosie was, and it's incredible that you have like HORNE-FRANCIS. He had one shot for goal that he probably should kick, but it was the likes of Jackson Mead chipping in with a couple. It was Willem Drew chipping in with a really nice snap, which got a nice good
Willem Drew. Why not?
Yeah,
I think is how Hutto said it on the Fox call. Like, why not?
Just throw him in there as well for a goal.
Not?
Yeah. So like having just the midfield mix just looked. We've talked about it for a couple of weeks that it just didn't look right. That no one kind of seemed like they knew exactly what their role was, and so people kind of stepping on each other's toes, and it just felt like it clicked this week. That and again, the proof will be in the pudding as we go forward as to how consistent it goes. If Rosie does spend more time at halfback, and then this midfield mix continues, what their application is going forward. But it just did feel like that Willem Drew didn't feel like they were stepping on each other's toes as much, and there was a lot more. And Drew and on Newcomb again, just giving him a focal point then just opens up his game as well, because he had more of the ball, he had a hell of a lot of contested ball, and so his game gets better when he's got a bit of a focal point for his game as well, which is that's what good taggers can do, is have an impact on the game outside of their their lockdown role. Yeah. I loved it. It was a great return to form for Willem. I think he looked locked in, and it's so funny that Wine's kind of not forgotten. Certainly not by me, but it is also like he had 8 clearances, like 5 clearances, but he was the Ollie that we love, but kind of like with the performances of the Butters and HORNE-FRANCIS and co, like Ollie's like, as a Brownlow medalist and one of the record vote getting Brownlow medalists, he's like 3rd or 4th fiddle depending on where you rate Willem as well in there. So quite incredible to have that depth. And then of course Jackson Mead's popping in and out of there as well. So that's why I'm glad that we kind of did the move with Rosie to halfback, because it has kind of half availed some of those criticisms we had, because it just felt like we're trying to get everyone, all the chefs into the kitchen when there really just wasn't enough room for them all. Whereas now they kind of have their space, and we're utilizing Rosie's talent on halfback, and then it just helps everyone else out as well in the midfield. So I was just buzzing watching it. It's obviously on the night, but then watching the replay. I've only gotten one replay in because I've had a busy couple of days since the game, but watching the replay again and just watching them all just absolutely lock in. Obviously, Butters is back to is fit. There's no doubt about that now. The way he ran the game and was running the whole way. And as Mitch Georgiades said in the post match, when the question was raised to him, like, who's the biggest yapper in the team, and he said, "Oh, there's no doubt about it. Like it's Zach Butters." So he was.
Well, we got the crazy eyes too.
Yeah. And
sorry, excuse me. Right on cue, I must say, from the Fox team. And
incredible.
Again, with the TV rights deals, it depends what bloody telecast you're watching at the time. But on the Fox call right at the end, when he did the crazy eyes, literally just before that, they're like, "We know we can get the crazy eyes about him." Oh, there they are. Yeah. And like Jared alluded to, well, he didn't allude to it. I don't know why I said that. He literally mentioned, well, don't have to be a keen lip reader to know what Zach Butters was saying.
Fuck them. See you next Tuesdays, eh?
Fuck these guns.
It's very funny because a few people have made mention of that. I think it was a tweet out there. I can't remember who it was from, but like how in the post match it was like, oh yeah, it's built up more in the media and whatever. But it's like next minute, read Zach Butters' lips at the end of the game when he's like walking to Drewy, which shout out to watch one of the most robust sing songs of the Port theme after the game I've seen in a while. Like sometimes you watch a game, you can tell they're exhausted, and we're just glad we got through that one, singing the song.
We're doing this for TV. Yeah.
That was genuine energy and feel, obviously with Tommy Cochran in the middle getting the Gatorade shower prior, but Zach Butters' Drewy in the middle of the song was very, very loud and very very good, and the whole song was just sung with a gusto that this one meant something, and it's just one of those moments that because you get that cynicism, and then you have those people out there that just go, "Oh, players are all friends," and yeah, sure they are. Like we know that they, a lot of players do get along well, okay, outside of footy, but there was a bit of feeling between the sides on the night, and though the handshakes at the end were amicable, and I'm sure there's plenty of Brokey was having a good chat to Luke Bruce and whatever as I was watching the post match and the replay, but there was definitely a bit of feel, and Zach Butter's lip reading was kind of spoke to that there is still rivalry exists in footy, whether it be the showdown rivalry or whatever, rivalries that have somewhat been just come from good football games against each other. It does exist, and while they might look at over the other side and go, oh, they're mostly decent blokes, but at the end of a big game, they're still going to walk off and go, fuck these cunts.
Just something on rivalry, and it's a thought that I had afterwards, and it's kind of I want to play devil's advocate for two topics, but my first one is that you don't generate rivalries unless you are a good football club, which may pain people to hear, but and this is obviously putting local rivalry to one side, because if you've got a local rivalry, like it's only natural. But football clubs only generate genuine rivalry with other football clubs because they're consistently playing good football, whether it be finals. Generally playing finals more often than not. And that's one point that I want to make. And that's why, your North Melbournes, your Adelaide Crows, for that matter, like those teams, in the last, 3 to 5 years, how often do you hear, oh yeah, speaking of the Adelaide, how often outside of a showdown, these two teams hate each other, they've got a genuine rivalry? You don't, because they're shit. They're a shit club, or they've been shit for a long period of time, like a North Melbourne or whatnot. Yeah, and then so just to play devil's advocate for the people that want to call Port Adelaide a mediocre football club, I understand the pain and frustration from the lack of premierships, because I feel that too. But I do bristle at the fact that people want to call us a mediocre football club. But mediocre football clubs don't generate genuine rivalry with other football clubs if you're mediocre. It just doesn't. It's just it's an oxymoron, in my opinion. And to the second topic of playing devil's advocate is on Zach Butters. I wouldn't be surprised if he said, fuck these cunts after every game against every club in the competition.
Yeah,
because that's the type of white lion type of player that I see Zach Butters to be. It's just every game means something to him.
He said in the post match as well, when he's getting talked to by someone, he said, yeah, I get in a bit of trouble from my mum, from Kenny, the other coaches, but it's just how I didn't he? Yeah. It's just like, oh, I love it. But that's just like, I worry about him ever, his chances, because he's going to be a Brownlow medal contender for years to come as long as he stays fit. Just because he does just naturally attract votes. We saw it last year when he finished third in the count. I worry about if the Brownlow doesn't change their metrics on, just getting suspended these days is so
best
easy.
And fairest.
Yeah. That he might just never be in contention, just purely based on that. But he does seem to have. He does play it on the line that he just costs himself money. He doesn't get suspended all that often because he just plays.
That's right. It's like these players get paid $1 million a year, and $5,000 fines mean fuck all.
Yeah, I think he's close to touching 50K for his career now, which is clearly I think he's he's either in the lead now or he's just right up there with Toby Green, who Toby's been around a lot longer, but that's obviously just going to keep growing as the league the way it is now. But yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on rivalry?
On rivalry with
your thoughts, just of my sentiments before. Does that resonate with you? It's obviously a thought bubble that I've had since watching the replay more so, and just the topic of rivalry and how you generate rivalry.
Oh, absolutely. Like Liverpool, Manchester City. I know I bring Liverpool up any chance I can on this podcast, but that's a rivalry that didn't exist 15, 20 years ago, because Manchester City 20 years ago were in the third division at one point. So I think it was the third division. So that rivalry with Klopp and Guardiola in the Premier League over the last few years, and then even, it's entirely been generated by the fact that they were the two top running teams. They both were finishing on high point counts because they were playing high level football and they were battling for titles. And they became a genuine rivalry. Like, there was some nasty stuff from some Manchester City players on a plane once singing a song that referred to some tragedies that Liverpool were involved in. And it all came from because there was a bitterness between the teams about the fact they were both constantly competing at the top. So that's entirely an on-field rivalry. And local rivalries. To mention Adelaide and Port, though, that has been benefited by both teams being successful and constantly in close run games. Because you look at whether you maybe the Q clash between Brisbane and Gold Coast will finally start having some spice, but that has always been like, oh, it's the Q clash, but it's not really much of a rivalry.
How much?
Proper rivalry that much. Yeah, the Battle of the Bridge has only gotten better as GWS have genuinely become a year-on-year contender and a better team. But the Adelaide and Port one is still benefited from both the deep-seatedness of it and then the fact they've been successful. So, there is a certain part of it that's local, and then there's a certain part of it that's your success, and kind of the showdown has benefited from both of those things coming together to make it the rivalry that it is. But it is like the Port and Hawthorn one that's flared up over the last 18 months has come from both close finishes and both teams being decent teams that combat well and have a few players that like to yap as well. So as well as coaches at times, apparently. So not apparently.
But I would even say that Port have a rivalry, a modern rivalry with Geelong to an extent as well. Like, we've obviously played them a few times in finals.
4
Western
qualifying
Bulldogs
finals,
probably
which is
to a
insane.
lesser extent, but
yeah.
What was that? Sorry,
I'm saying 4 qualifying finals against Geelong is insane numbers. Like, really. 4 qualifying, and then
they obviously had the wood over us for a long period of time, but I think there's still enough spice there to constitute it as a modern rivalry. And I guess that it's just to further my own point in that you don't generate genuine rivalry without actually being a half decent football club. Just offer that mirror
West
to
Coast for a couple of years post
a
the
mediocre
Shuey
club
goal.
overall.
Yeah. You do, they ebb and flow depending on, like, West Coast. It's not there anymore because they're a basket case, but for a few years around that, and we had a big finals win against them in 2007 as well, a close run one, and they've been a good team for a lot of those years up until post 2018 premiership. There were some battles with them, and you kind of felt the heat a little bit with those ones, and so. It really is a case of if you're a good team and you come up against good teams and play good games against them, you just generate rivalry. And certainly this one's been spiced up by a bit of off-field theatrics as well. But the on-field, it's generated from the on-field. Ken doesn't do what he did last year if there wasn't that game wasn't close. Because if we won by 40, he wouldn't have had the impassioned response at the end of the game because he would have already been settled a little bit. It was because it was such a close run thing. And then obviously the DBJ earlier in the year when they had that game won. There's just a lot of factors that have gone into it, which have made it, great. So, I absolutely agree with the sentiments because I see it all over, any sport you watch around the world. If there's two teams battling, like the Celtics and Lakers in the NBA is probably the best example of it. They're not geographical.
That's a long-standing rivalry.
Yeah, and they're not geographically close at all. Like, it shouldn't, but it is because it's East Coast versus West Coast, and they've both been winning finals and championships, battling each other for who has the most over the course of their journey. So it all comes down to if you're good teams playing good football or basketball, whatever it may be, against each other, you will generate a genuine rivalry and a dislike as well. It comes with the territory because it's all tribal at the end of the day, even if we do, you and I disassociate from it as far as its importance to the general tribalness of humanity and whatever's going on in the world. But it's still, there is a tribalness to it. And long may it continue in a healthy way because I love it as well. I'm a big fan of genuinely leaning into the fact that there is a rivalry. And sometimes, there is real reasons behind it. I'm sure we'll talk about the Showdown one when it comes to Showdown week again. So, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, this one was a great example of what just an on-field rivalry can be as well, which was great. One note I wanted to finish off on, I've had it staring at me in front of me, so I don't forget it before we move to the forward line. I just wanted to shout out in my spotlight this week, and I don't have a watch list, by the way. I don't want to do that this week because I just couldn't find one really. But my spotlight this week to finish off on the midfield for me is Jordan Sweet. I think Lloyd Meek's been trumpeted as as one of the top ruckmen in the league for the last 12, 18 months, and I think Jordan Sweet had a really, really good night against him. They both battled, but as far as hit out, just the pure hit out number was dominated by Sweet, 47-30. Hit outs to advantage, 15-6. The percentages of those hit out to win percentage was 51-33. He just won the battle for me, and as well as he was right up there in pressure acts as well, Sweetie, and I also had 8 1%ers, 8 score involvements, 6 tackles, so he's getting involved around the ground a bit as well. So for me, Jordan Sweet, we've talked about it time and time again since he has taken over as a top line ruckman, and our trust has built in him week on week, that it is just so nice to not be in this. For a few years there, it was a struggle at the ruck position, and it's just long may the sweet reign continue as our leading ruckman, because he plays with passion. He's obviously a Port man. Not that you have to be a fan of, but I think there is a part of it for me that really I can see that he will bleed for this club. I don't want him to bleed on the field because I want him to not go off with a blood rule or anything worse, but he does bleed teal and black and white, and he's out there doing the job for the club, and he's winning battles against very good ruckmen now, which is a great thing to see.
Yeah, couldn't speak more highly of Jordan Sweet. Was definitely on my short list, and I actually thought you were going to go for a forward this week. So I was going to go Sweet, but then because I went off on a tangent, I was going to save it for honorable mention. But now that you bring it up, I've definitely looked into those AFL stats, and Sweet is actually the clubhouse leader for hitouts after 5 full rounds, and he's third for hitouts to advantage. So the more this season runs on, and obviously the challenge for any player, including Jordan Sweet, is consistency. But if he stays on this form line, this trend, he will start to receive a lot more plaudits than, he's getting none from the outside football media, to be honest, at the moment. And I think he's been doing this kind of shit for at least half a season now, running, if not a little bit more than that. So yeah, I absolutely love him. And as we've discussed in my family group chat after the game or over the weekend, it's not just what he's doing in the stoppage from a hit out point of view. He's also getting his hands dirty at ground level with second and third efforts, and also making himself available for handball chains. So a ruckman in the modern age need to be 3-dimensional or multi-dimensional. Hit outs and hit outs to advantage are one thing, and that's your bread and butter. That's what you should be good at, but you need to offer something more to your game as well, and to the team, I should say. And I feel that he's genuinely doing that at the moment. Long may it continue.
Yeah. No, I love this game, and it's disappointing that he had to the moments that a lot of people already noticed outside it, if they weren't watching closely, it was probably the freeze against, but that just doesn't count for me as far as he was battling and just lost a couple there. But
there's always opportunities for improvement, and on a couple of those occasions he could find himself a bit hard done by.
But overall,
I agree with the sentiments.
Yeah, he was an absolute benefit to the result once again. And like I said, may it continue. Yeah, the forwards, I did almost, I will say, my runner-up and was almost going to be the spotlight, because I love giving someone who's up and coming the hit. I think Joe Richards was great on the night, particularly early, kind of set the tone. Obviously, that set shot goal to open up the proceedings was fucking fantastic hit. Just swung in.
And it looked easier on the telecast somehow. Like, I remember, on the night, just thinking, obviously pressure field, but the angle seemed a lot tighter in person than it did on TV, and made it look like a walk in the park.
Yeah. yeah, it's still just bent beautifully, and then yeah, he obviously kicks another one, and the one that he kicked from open play was just a very good, like, quick on the boot kind of. I know someone on Twitter mentioned it, and I think we talked about it on the night too. Just the kind of Robbie Gray lights in a way, just the way he moves, and his. I mean, we've talked.
Yeah, and because he kept his distance from congestion,
Mm,
and credit to Willie Rioli in that moment too. He got his hands dirty, ducked and weaved to get the handball out to Joe at that point for his second goal. But
mm.
yeah, I saw a few people make the Robbie Gray comparison after the first quarter and the first half in particular. But I think it's his ability to grab the ball and then burst into a pocket of space
Yeah,
before he makes his decision, which I admire because then it goes against what we were doing wrong in previous weeks where people are just getting the ball and immediately disposing it with
yeah.
reckless
Or
abandon.
running into traffic somehow.
Yeah, so and it's a reason why I brought him up in last week's show to maybe enjoy a bit more time around the midfield. And that obviously didn't happen, but the way we were playing brought him into the game a bit more, which was another note off the back of the St Kilda game. It's just using our small forwards to better effect. And he's a great example of that. And the way he did set the tone. He's one of our top rated players in the first half as a whole. And that first quarter definitely franked that because of the impact that he was having. Definitely his best game thus far for Port Adelaide. Don't know his prior stats with Collingwood, but there's only a sample size of games there too. So I'm very happy with his output.
Yeah, yeah. He had used it at 81% as well, 5 score involvements. So he just kind of like, you kind of, if he's going to have those kind of games where he kicks a couple of goals, has 16 posies at 81%, gets a few score involvements amongst that alongside the goals. Yeah, for a player that kind of almost seems like, we the deal with Dan Houston still is talked about as a steal for Collingwood. If he can play these kind of roles and be, and I've been really impressed with some of his outside of the, if he can start hitting the scoreboard more like he did on the weekend, but even we've talked about him a bit over the last few weeks, just his ability up the field a little bit as well. So yeah, but as far as we're talking about the forward line, he kicked a couple of goals and was involved in a lot of score involvements as well. So between him, Sam Powell-Pepper kicking a couple, there's, and then you've got Georgiades popping up with 3. Ollie Lord only kicked 1. I think I said 2 earlier, but he only kicked 1. I think in my head he should have kicked 2. Might have been.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant with my comment as well. It's like he could have quite easily had 3, but yeah, as you say, entered the game with 1 on the board.
Yeah, but again, he's
Willie with the 3.
Yeah, and this is an incredible moment, which we'll talk about. We'll get to that in a sec. We talked about it a bit earlier, but the forward line of Mitch Georgiades is leading the line so well now. Like the way he moved on Sunday night. I was about to say Saturday night. I don't know why. Sunday night. That was what, if anyone's watching on YouTube and just saw my brain just stop working for a second, it was like my brain saying Saturday while I was trying to think it was Sunday.
Yeah, you were buffering.
Yeah. It's a glitch in the Matrix. Just Mitch Georgiades is truly, truly leading the line. And this was just a real example for me against he's had good games towards the end of last year as well, including against Hawthorn. But I think this game was just one of those ones I'm just like, this guy is absolutely our lead forward. He's a unique unicorn of a player in what he can do in how he marks the ball, how he moves, and
he's running his defenders ragged as well.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And
yeah, he said in the just in the post match, because I think it was Fox 7 News that talked to him in the post match and had him on. No, he was holding a Fox microphone. Now that I'm picturing it in my head,
yeah, it was Fox. Yeah,
he said that, like, when they asked him about the battle with Tom Barrass, he just said, "Look, he's stronger than me, so I just need to use my mobility." And that's just what was a joy to watch on the night. Is his movement is so intelligent in the forward line. He's constantly moving, trying to wheel around, and defenders are going to know that he's going to try and cut back and cut forward. But that's just what good players can do, whether it be whatever sport you watch. A lot of teams know what, whether it be Mo Salah or or players in the movements that in Kyrie Irving, the way he used to move, and or players that can move well in whatever sport it's going to be. They know what they're going to do, or wide receivers making cutbacks, but it's still just when they're that good at it, it's hard to defend. And Georgiades the way he can open up. And then again, he's benefiting from Ollie Lord also making the defenders accountable too, because Ollie Lord was tying up Brass at times as well, and he lost a few battles with him. And he's a young player against an experienced defender, so it's to be expected. But he was still tying him up. Like there was a lot. Like if you don't have Ollie Lord in this game, I don't expect that forward line to be functioning nearly as well. And that's kind of it's been a theme so far this season, as you and I have talked about. Injuries and domino effects has come up as a theme a lot, and that's the domino effect of the added domino effect of the players coming back now. Just as we talked about, Zach Butters coming to the midfield, opening up even more the idea of Rosie off of halfback. Ollie Lord has also opened up the forward line, and it also benefited, Sam Powell-Pepper and James Sicily out of the defense as well. So, there's some great moments watching. I can't remember which show it was. Someone just talked about just how James Sicily just didn't follow Powell-Pepper off into, just let Powell-Pepper go, and it's like that is your opponent, and it's just like, okay, cool. So James Sicily, which nothing made me happier, by the way, on the night than the boos that rained down for James Sicily. And I know he got going a bit in the second half, but that was only because they needed to chase the game, and he wasn't doing fucking shit down in defense, so he might as well have gone.
He was a liability.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was. He turned it over. He was just letting players just run loose. It was just like, what is James Sicily? And like, I thought this guy was a great swingman, but I guess he's not. He just, I'm being a little facetious, but it was a great example of what And Powell-Pepper missed one early, but then he kicked a couple of really nice goals in the end, and a great passionate celebration, which was really, really tickled me as well. Love it when Powell-Pepper's getting the chest pumping going. They were all getting involved in the niggle, which was great. But yeah, the
just on that, sorry. The funny thing that I find with Sam Powell-Pepper now, and maybe it's the girl dad or, just that sign of maturity in him, is that we all know the damage that Sam Powell-Pepper could do if push came to shove. But it was more the fact that when other players were getting in a tussle, he kind of just inserted himself in the middle and just stood there.
Yeah.
He didn't get aggro. He was just kind of holding people at arm's length, or just negating anything that the opposition wanted to do to one of his teammates. And it was just like, it was a bit of like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this right now. Yeah, like kind of vibes to it from Peps, because it's like, if we do this, there's one person that's going to come off second best, and it's not going to be me. And that's a bit of aura. That's what you love about Peps. And like you said, the chest beating on top of that when he's up and about, fuck, it adds another dimension to that forward line, and it would lift spirits. They mention people walk taller with Charlie Dixon in the forward line.
Yeah.
And I'd say that Peps has a similar je ne sais quoi presence, just because he's just no holds barred. Like, what you see is what you get. It doesn't take a backward step. And if push came to shove, he could do some damage. But to his credit, he was just being an annoyance or a negating factor in a lot of spot fires on the night.
Yeah.
And just from an annoying point of view, he even, just holding someone's jumper, but with no emotion. Just holding it, keeping him at arm's length until they kind of just broke away. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, I like that though, because it's you have like, especially Butters is going to get involved like that. At Butters, when he like ran down on Warple and kind of just rolled over on him and to start that little, it's just, I think it was Warple.
I think there was more to that. I think there was more to that than what should have been, and I don't think. I think that was on the margins of not being paid. Like, shouldn't have been paid a free kick, because if you actually watch the gameplay, you're talking about on the wing. On the eastern wing, early-ish in the game. Yeah. Warple had possession, whether loosely or directly with the ball. Butters was actually trying to shift him off the ball to allow I can't remember which Port Adelaide players were around the ball, but to allow them access to the football,
Mm.
and Warple played the situation perfectly. He kind of flopped a little bit, and it was half side, half in the backish, and the umpire got sucked in. And Warple obviously took offense to it, and then, like you said, a little bit of niggle started. But I actually think it was a genuine like attack on the contest, trying to shove him in the side and take him off the ball so that someone else could get it. Because if you look on the replay, Butters in that quick moment is saying like kind of quick, get it kind of thing. But in all like in that second at the same time, the umpire's blown his whistle and called it for in the back or whatever he called it. And then that started a bit of a spot fire in itself.
Yeah, it just allows that moment for everyone to look at it and go, oh, and then Butters at that time is just kind of sitting on top of him. So the other,
in the end,
optics
because
of it,
Warple just goes to ground.
Exactly. But yeah, on the I guess it's a moment to talk about. If you have any thoughts on the tools, by the way, you can put them out there in a sec. But a moment to talk about the Willie Rioli impact on the game. Both his kicks inside 50 at times were incredible. I think he was the one that linked. I'm trying to think now. I think he had the involvement and went.
He got one to George, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was out of a really good sequence down the wing. And I think it might be Tommy Cochran that kind of kicks it to Willie, and it kind of drops short to him, but Willie gathers the ground ball and then just puts a really great kick inside 50. So again, you've talked about it a lot in the last few weeks, and I certainly believe probably last year as well. His work as he ranges up to half forward and out into the midfield, and we've obviously spent some time in midfield, but he can be he's a great plus point in entry inside 50, but then his work inside 50 as well. Obviously, I think he's a really good, reliable. When he gets high percentage set shots, he's generally kicking them these days, because he had one of those early. Then obviously when he went from 1 goal to 3 goals without any time taken off the clock was one of my favourite moments just to be a part of. And, you remember those little moments in the stadium that, in 10 years, most of the general AFL fandom won't remember, but I'll just remember being on the hill when Willie, because I remember just from my vantage point of us standing in front of the scoreboard, actually just seeing it live, like right in front of me, like him showing the ball. And because I remember turning to you, like, did you see that? Like, did you see what he just did to him? And then obviously, Jath like shoved him to the ground, and but I just loved, I love that bit. That's good. That's not over. Like, he didn't showboat it too much. He kind of just went, oh, look at this, and then just blam, as I said on Twitter, just blamed it over the Moreton Bay Figs, like, because it fucking went distance, that ball. And and then obviously it was on after that. Which, by the way, shout out to Mitch Georgiades, like actually looking like, if you go one more step, I'm going to put you into the crowd to Jath. Like, there was like
into the crowd, the way
he just put him up against the fence. He put him up against the fence and just had him like, this isn't happening right now. So
who do you fucking think you are? Was the kind of like optics of it all.
Exactly.
It was sensational. I'm just trying to remember though, because obviously it was a very big night on many fronts. And I think, you're obviously a little bit taller than I am. I don't know if I recall actually seeing what had happened, but I just remember fucking all hell breaking loose for that brief period of time. And I'm like, whoa. And then obviously you're seeing them set up for a double goal, and then the hill gets just another wave of excitement, like, it's doing it. And then, like you said, that came just after that annoyance that we mentioned off the top. They were 22 points in arrears. But then in the blink of an eye, you're just like, oh, well, now it's back out to 40 points. And
I remember turning around you at one point going, what were we worried about? It's 40 points again. Like, here we are. It's comfortable again. And it was just like, whereas, literally probably 2.5, 3 minutes prior before, because before that was a Sam Powell Pepper goal that kind of breaks the chain of their scoring that got them within 22. And then the Willie goal comes from the ensuing...
Good mature moment from a team point of view.
Yeah. And the ensuing goal from Willie, the first one, comes from the ensuing centre clearance. That is like a great just get it on the boot moment from Travis Boak as it comes out of the centre congestion. And then it comes to a great sequence of handballs and obviously Willie showing the ball to Jath and away it goes into the Figs and then obviously gets the double goal and just finishes it off, and a bit of scoring and whatever later, and it's the 30-point win. But yeah, overall, just for a forward line, as you said to start the episode, if you told me that Mitch and Willie have 3 each, and Val Pepper has 2, and Joe Richards has 2, then yeah, and Rosie has 2, then you're thinking it's a win. And thankfully, this week it was. It was a really well functioning forward line, finding a lot of space for each other. And the pressure in the forward line as well was really good too. I'm just rolling back up some of my notes. Tackles inside 50 was
we dominated tackles inside 50.
Yeah, 15-9, whereas the season average for both teams, again, it's an early season, so the average is, maybe is just a little bit of a short window, but we'd only been averaging just under 11. They were just averaging just under 12, so we kind of well beat our average whilst also them falling below, which made for a good discrepancy there in our favour. And then the marks inside 50 was 12-12, which I was kind of surprised, but then I was just like, they got those cheapies and whatnot at some point. So, and we generally were, even if we weren't kicking, sometimes not taking the marks, we were kicking the space where a player could run onto. We're just finding space for players to work inside 50 as well. So we took, 12 inside 50 marks is still a decent number, but then we were finding space for players to work when it wasn't always inside 50. And there's some just great ball movement to come inside 50 and kick a couple of goals as well, whether it be the Jackson Mead running in off the stoppage for his goal and situations such as that. So, and then just the overall inside 50 numbers was 61-48. So, again, if you're getting decent spacing and good performances inside 50 with that kind of domination, you generally should be winning. So, so all those metrics that helped get that to that helped as well. So, I was just, overall really pleased. Again, that's 2 weeks in a row now. I've been reasonably pleased with how the Mitch and Ollie kind of duo of tools have opened up things for everyone else. And unfortunately, last week, the dominance in some of those players didn't help, but this week it absolutely paid off in abundance.
Yeah, when you consider that Mitch didn't kick a single goal in the first round, and then has kicked 12 in the four rounds after that, he's in sublime form and controlling that forward line, like you mentioned, through forward craft and sheer effort and work rate. It's a sight to see. Just on that Willie moment as well, like, I'm a cheeky fucker when it comes to sport. I'm a cheeky person by nature. So something like that is right in my wheelhouse. I fucking, like, as a fan, and it's one of those moments where, as a fan of the person playing for the football club that I love, I fucking love that moment. But it's one of those moments where if you're an opposition fan, you fucking hate it. Like, don't fucking do that. And Fox put the little microscope highlight like circle over him, and he just had this big shit-eating grin as he did it too. Like, that's just chef's kiss. Like, as a cheeky person myself, that's just the height of cheeky shithousery on a football field, and I fucking loved it. But like I said, if you're an opposition fan, you're seething at that point in time.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. Like, I remember when there's so many sporting moments I've loved where it's just like that, and you just, opposition fans just absolutely hate it. But I remember like when Luis Suarez was accused of being a diver by David Moyes back in the Everton Liverpool days of 10 years ago, and when Suarez scored against Everton, he ran the length of it, like, to halfway to just do a flying dolphin dive in front of David Moyes, like just like tucked his arms in front of him and dived. And then it was like Robbie Fowler back in the 90s when people were giving him shit, like saying that he was, doing coke. So like when he scored, he snorted the line.
Oh, he did the line and then got fined for it.
And they're all,
again, you'd love it as a fan of that football club, but people are rolling their eyes otherwise.
Yeah. And that's what, again, we were talking about rivalry before. It's like, that's why these things actually, the players, while they do, they're professionals and they understand it's a job, and a lot of them get off in the off season, there's still, like, there is that tribalness and white line fever that hits when they go over the, the white line, and that is a part, there is still a part of it. And Willie isn't doing that unless there's, a little bit of feeling there. And I don't know if you have anything more, or want to just touch on what's occurred over the last 48 hours since the game, since we're kind of
all done on a forwards, on a forwards wrap. We've kind of wrung the proverbial dry with our line breakdowns, as was the enormity of the win
Yeah.
But yeah, important just to touch on the downfall
Yeah.
afterwards.
Absolutely. So it's not breaking news to anyone that's listening to the podcast, I'm sure, but obviously Willie put his statement up late on either Sunday evening or early Monday morning, just kind of stating a dislike for Hawthorn as a club. He made mention that it's nothing to do with the current players or anything like that, which was a key point to note in that whole thing. But essentially stating about how whether it be the treatment of his father when he was there for in the early 90s, or as he referred to him as his brother, but obviously his cousin Cyril, his treatment there as well. And obviously that stuff still, while settled, it still seems to be ongoing as well, because it's just like it's still out there in the ether of the landscape. So, and Willie bringing it up still shows that there's some feeling there. So he deleted it, which I don't know if that was maybe he got a nudge to do that, or felt like, oh, maybe.
I think he actually deleted his whole Instagram account.
He has deactivated, which I think that's come from the abuse he's copped since, because he did post about that, which is just absurd. He has he didn't actually say anything wrong in that. I think it was just the timing of it. It's just like, maybe just don't air that stuff so rawly in the post-win landscape. Maybe I think that's the Port statement kind of just spoke to that. It's like, yeah, we support him. It's just maybe not the right way to go about expressing your feelings, and that's just the murkiness of the social media landscape is that. So I have no problem with what he said. Some people are going to probably, clearly some people have been. That's the again annoyance of the whole situation, is it just opened up the avenue for the worst people on earth to feel like they have a right to speak to someone in the way. Then certainly not going to repeat what was said. That Willie, I love that Willie just posted the screenshots with their, a lot of people sometimes when they post screenshots of abuse they cop, they'll like blur out the names. Willie just posted them, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's what you should do. Like, if they're saying those kind of things in your DMs as low life crap as they have said to Willie, and anyone listening that isn't up to speed on the story, don't need to have any great imagination to know what some dog shit Australians or other people are saying to Willie in light of him trying to talk about something that's hurt his family and continues to do so. So yeah, it's an unfortunate sideline to it. I certainly don't blame Willie at all. He had a great game, and he just expressed some feelings afterwards, probably with some passion and emotion to it. Whether he and the club have probably agreed that maybe it wasn't the right timing and the way to go about it, but it certainly doesn't mean it's not right. It's not like he's wrong. It's just like that grey area of like what's the right way to go about something, even if what you're saying is actually not objectively wrong. He's clearly just expressing something that's a personal, real feeling to him, which I absolutely support. You should always feel free to be the person you are, as long as it's not hurting anyone. He's just expressing some pain that he has and some feelings he has towards Hawthorn, which is generational for him as well, both his late father and obviously someone part of his family now as well. So he's got every right to feel the way he does. And he's apparently had some words with Sam Mitchell since, who he has actually a decent relationship with, apparently from Mitchell's time as a West Coast coach, and he's talked and they've had some mature conversations apparently. So it's not like it's not being handled right, but I think the worst part of it is it's just opened up the worst part of humanity and how they've abused Willie. And Port have given him some personal leave since, which is probably the most pertinent thing to us as a Port Adelaide fan podcast, is like Willie is currently on some personal leave. It's apparently like they just giving him time and said, whenever you want to come back, you're good. And they're still expecting him to play this week against Sydney, but it is just an unfortunate.
Yeah, from what I understand, it was leave from like today's session.
Yeah,
I think it was Josh Money maybe reported it as such. And if it extends further than that, obviously there's no issues. I have no issues with that. Whatever it may be. Sorry, it's just, were you finished on your point?
Yes, yeah, no,
take over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, one of the biggest travesties in modern technology is that you don't have to pass an IQ test to gain access to social media, because, like you said, in these types of moments, the world's corner of fucking idiots, whether it's influenced by drugs or alcohol, whatnot, and heightened emotion, their fingers get itchy and can't help but bring out the innermost, ugliest qualities in human society, which is quite tiring. And that's coming from a Joe average white Australian. I can't imagine how tiring it would be for Indigenous and as an extension of that, people of color as a whole. In modern society, like I said, with modern technology at the fingertips of every fucking stupid cunt, to be frank, on Earth, and more so typically hiding behind a burner account or some fucking crap gutless shit like that. Again, on top of not having to pass an IQ test, just not having to verify who you fucking are and being able to just say whatever the fuck you want with no accountability, is, I think, one of the biggest downfalls in human society. You can preach freedom of speech all you fucking want, but saying shit like that to anyone, and particularly derogatory remarks to people, and again, off of the back of something that was an objective personal truth, it wasn't necessarily attacking anyone in particular. Sure, it was somewhat of a character blow at the Hawthorn Football Club historically, but from a very personal angle. But like you said, what he said was a home truth and a perspective, but it wasn't, what's the right word? It wasn't targeted at anyone personally, and he wasn't making any derogatory marks. He was just obviously expressing his opinions in relation to the treatment of family members of him, which is deeply personal and no one will ever understand. And we don't know whether someone went at him first in the back end of messages or whatever, and then he did that, and then off of him reacting to that, hypothetically, then the racism and all of that bullshit comes. We don't know that. It's not really important. But at the end of the day, it's not good enough. It's tiring. It's exhausting. We go through it every fucking year, and it's a blight on society and what is a beautiful competition as a whole, and the people that contribute to it, such as a Willie Rioli.
Yeah, we talk about Willie almost in any game that Port's played half decent footy in the last, well, since you and I have been doing this podcast together. And once again, thank you for adding the class that you do. It's like we've talked about Willie almost every week that Port have had a half decent game, and we talk about him with such the joy he brings to us because he plays football in a way that I can only describe now as a Willie Rioli way. He's such a unique player, and like we saw, his attributes he provides to our team come far, like the goal scoring is great, but it's far more than the goal scoring is an integral part of the way our team flows at the best of times. And just watching him, I mean, last weekend. So, me being in the US for 18 months, I didn't get to see him in person really until the finals last year. And then certainly actually get into a game and watching him warm up and how he flows around the field in the pregame I'd never seen. But he was, I told you last week when I was watching the warm ups against St Kilda, he's doing little keepy ups, like just incredible. Like watching someone do keepy ups with a soccer ball is pretty incredible. Watching someone do it with an AFL football for like walking and doing it for like 20 or 30 straight was quite a feat, and he's just doing it, chilling with his headphones on, having a great time. But then shortly after that, he's running over with a smile on his face, signing autographs, taking photos in his pre-game warm-up, and just like and I've seen that at open trainings that I've been to and stuff now, and he genuinely seems to take joy in being an AFL footballer for the Port Adelaide Football Club and being a fan favourite. Even just a bloke I know from playing cricket, he's posted some photos just the other day from him going to an open training with his kid, and one of the photos was a smiling Willie Rioli as well. So it's like he's a great person to have in footy, and so for the people to think they can treat someone like that way is just horrible. And as you said, freedom of speech only goes as far as freedom of if what you think is freedom of speech is infringing on someone else's happiness because it's hateful, then that's not freedom of speech, that's hate speech. And that's why there is actually a very easy distinction. Yeah, so that's the word I was looking for as I stumbled. Distinction to make between the things. If you have half a brain, just people think that the freedom of speech is so much more than that. And that's why don't go and listen to Warren Treadery's podcast, because he will fill your head with certain ideas about what freedom of speech is. It actually is just be a good human and don't make other people feel like their quality of life is less because of who they are. That's not freedom of speech, that's hate speech, and you shouldn't be doing that. and you should be. You're not going to get sent to the other thing about freedom of speech is like, actual countries that have totalitarian rule and whatever in the past or now, that, you still don't get sent to the gulag. You just might lose your job and be ostracized from whatever friendship group you have because you're a racist. You still get to live in your shithole and do whatever you want to do, unfortunately. So you still actually have freedom of speech. You being told you're a dickhead and losing your job or ostracized from friends because you are a racist idiot, you actually still have the freedom to be a racist idiot. You should just hopefully suffer the societal consequences of it, and you don't get sent to Siberia like the Soviet Union or what they still do now probably. You don't get that, so you still do have freedom of speech. So relax. If you're a racist cunt, you're actually probably going to be okay. You just hopefully will be ostracized from society, your jobs, and hopefully at some point, you will see the light and realize you're the problem, not everyone else.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure we're preaching to the choir right now, but it's worth talking about. It's worth having the conversation about, and we all wish that we don't have to, or don't need to.
I never want to talk about it in this podcast, but when it's affecting a player that we love, and it's a story right now, it's at least we have to spend the 5 or 10 minutes we've had on it. So that's it. That's all I have. I love you, Willie. Hope you're well, and dealing with everything okay, and hopefully see you back in a port jumper as soon as this weekend. But whenever it's healthy and viable for you to do so, that's all I ask. Is that his personal well-being is much more important than what he can do on the football field. As important as we find, as much as we love it, his personal well-being is always front and center at the end of the day. So yeah,
agreed.
Absolutely. All righty. Ready to get into some segments because there is so much stuff to talk about still. All right, let's do it.
No.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Grady's best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks cruelly.
Robbie! Let him entertain you!
Righty, the Wilson Gray. Oh, it's a good week for it. Just a quick note, last week's winner, JHF's contested mark, won quite comfortably in the end. So shout out to everyone that votes, and I appreciate there's been a good handle on voting. On Instagram, Twitter algorithms don't seem to help the polls these days, but Instagram voting's been good. So I appreciate everyone that's getting involved in that, and yeah, long may it continue. Love your work. So JHF's mark wins for last week. Contested mark in the Ford 50, floating across. Just a beautiful JHF moment. You get to go first this week. Very intrigued to see what you got because I had plenty on my short list. So it's going to be a good week for it.
Yeah. So many moments of individual brilliance, but also just a shout out to the torpedoes that were on display on the night. There's a couple, Mead for one. Sampao Pepper was another one I had written down, and it's a little, not in it's not an individual moment, but I really want to nominate the stoppage late in the third quarter where Sweet, it's a center bounce, Sweet taps it into the line of a Zach Butters steam train just running through the guts of the center stoppage, handballs it to JHF, who just, in typical JHF fashion, just laces it out on the chest of Mitch Georgiadis to line up for goal. It was just one of those real Zach Butters splitting the pack, but then the finish on JHF, it could probably just nominate one of them in isolation, but yeah, the whole play itself just warmed the cockles.
And more importantly, he's kicked straight when he's had to.
Hawthorn have kicked 5 of the last 6 goals in this game. Ripped it out of the middle, Butters to HORNE-FRANCIS. Georgiadis.
How about this? Is there a better sight in football than Butters at full speed to HORNE-FRANCIS and HORNE-FRANCIS off 2 steps with the bullet to Georgiadis? That's how you draw it up.
And I mean, I had a couple listed that were just chains of efforts and like handballs, which led to a handball, which led to another moment of individual brilliance. Like there was a few on my short list that I could have gone for, and then but I don't know, that one just stands out in my mind.
Yeah, there's definitely a few moments just when I was doing my rewatch notes that I just went like just a sequence on the wing, like a handball out, like a little sequence out stoppage, and then a kick forward, and it's like, geez, that was beautiful to watch. So yeah, it's good to a moment like that is a good one to have in there, I think. No, I really rate that. So my nomination for this week, and it is really just an individual little moment that just for some reason just tickled me so much, and I just don't think there's not enough moments probably that just highlight just a handball, I think. But the Butters handball that released Sam Powell-Pepper, that then he handballed it into Rioli for the goal that we all just talked about before.
Cochrane there, Butters, here we go, Powell-Pepper, Rioli.
That handball out of the back just opened things up, and it just shows how good a handball in a moment can be, and why the handball is such a great thing in our sport. But that handball was just such a classic Butters. Yeah, and just a classic Butters moment, because it's like he's twisting his body up a little bit, hammering, but it's like he knows exactly what he's doing, and it just opened up that like that goal. If Butters isn't playing that game, that goal doesn't happen, because it's kind of like just one of those ones that just doesn't happen without the individual talents on display. So yeah, that handball.
I definitely had that on my. Yeah, absolutely agree. I definitely had that on my short list. One thing I will note is before the Butters handball is actually repeated efforts by Cochrane to keep the ball alive in close. I think he's holding off his opponent and kind of bouncing it like a basketball a little bit just to keep it in motion, keep it in front of him.
Yeah.
And then it whether it spills out or he gets the handball to Butters, who then just rubbermans it over the top. Yeah. Needed to pay Tommy a little bit of credit there, because I definitely had that on my short list.
Yeah, which, by the way, shout out to, we didn't even mention it, but Tommy Cochrane's first goal was a great moment to be a part of as well. So, just as a note before we get to the goal of the week, really loved there was a lot of efforts like that where players were really intent on keeping the ball in front of them or keeping the play in front of them, like a lot more than we've seen in previous weeks. So I did like this as a general thing on the game as well. There's a lot of players really just good, just great efforts to keep the ball in there, kind of, even if they weren't taking possession of it, they kept it in their sphere of influence, so to speak, rather than just letting it dribble past them or anything like that. So, yeah, no, that was great. I'm looking forward to getting those ones up, because they're two great efforts. All right, let's get to the goal of the week.
Monfrez has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint. Stevie Mobley. What a time. Oh! He is floating on air now.
All right, goal of the week. Last week, it was as I said last week's episode, it was the set shot regatta. It was Mitch from the southern end versus Mitch from the northern end, and Mitch from the southern end, which was the one that came with the Deadeye commentary, which you nominated. So you went 2-0 last week in your nominations. You're going well with your nominations this week, actually, this year in general, I think. Just getting
good moments.
Yeah, hitting the people right in the feels with your vibes, I think. So that's great. Alrighty, I get to go first this week on the goal of the week, and I think I'm going for low-hanging fruit, but we all love a bomb from outside 50. We all love a Berg bomb from outside 50. So I'm going with the Berg bomb.
Rosie looks infield and he has options. Burgoyne feeds the hand pass to Bergman from long range. Miles and miles. Bergman goals.
Turnover. Rosie's kick inside was perfect, and then Bergman just drifts down. This is what the best attacking halfbacks are doing, and to launch that from 57 metres out, what a bonus. They've kicked 3 goals directly off Hawthorn turnovers.
Great dish from Jace as well. Nice. A great mark. Jace had a lot of great moments in this game as well, by the way. But he just the fact that the awareness that, because, kind of players floating around the back to take the handball receive. Well, it kind of looked like it was on. It's still hard to make that happen without telegraphing it for the opposition. But a great finish from Bergman, because that was hit from not far from the center square. Like it's closer to the center square line, I think, than the 50 line when he kind of releases it, and then it comfortably. It's not like it doesn't land in row T or anything like that, but it comfortably clears. Still, it's a real dagger of a kick. So yeah, had to go. That was It was actually hard this week because I wanted to nominate. There were so many great goals, that snaps from inside 50 and different other goals, but that one just gotta love that. That kind of just really, when that one went in, that was about the moment. We'd kicked a few at that point that I just went, yo, fuck, we're on this week. We're kicking them. We've just got everything's working. And yeah, that one really set the night in proper motion for me from that point.
It did, yeah. It kept driving it home, that first quarter dominance. And we still had goals to come after that. Look, plethora of choices. Obviously, a couple of long bombs from Rosie. And I mean, you mentioned Tommy Cochran's first goal. That could have also, if it weren't for the fact that it was a goal, it was almost like a Wilson Gray moment in and of itself, just with the reaction to it. But one that sticks out in my mind was Mead's second goal in the second quarter. It was a bit of a walk-in goal, but it came off the back of an inside 50 that Ollie Lord just was really slick in his collection. He just kind of grasped at it. And at that point, it was like, boop, boop, off you go. Like, just from the sheer nature of him clawing it so smoothly in the contest. And yeah, Mead was right there to receive it. And
back to the edge of 50, a bouncing ball. Palpepper's tap clever. Georgiades, wobbler. Lord takes possession. What a hand pass to Mead. This is all a blur for Hawthorn. A black and teal.
What was that? 10 minutes 30 on the clock in the second quarter. And, oh, Jesus, people jumping off the rafters.
Yeah, that was when we were really starting to be like, how much could this be? Ollie, that Lord, it comes from like a Georgiades kick to kind of center it as well. So it's like those two working in tandem, and then me just walking in. It was a great moment. Things were really starting to. The lids were really starting to come off at that point, I think, for most of us, even though I was still somehow a nervous wreck on the hill. Yeah, but overall the vibes were very, very, very good. So some great moments, some great Wilson Grays and great goals to choose from this week. I'm looking forward to getting that voting up tomorrow evening. Alrighty, Player of the Year votes. It's going to be a tough one this week. I'm looking forward to see where you go. So let's play the embarrassing sting.
Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting.
Anyway, now that you've had to deal with that again, Jamie, you get to go first. Really intrigued to see where you go because I found it, quite tough this week. I'm going to say that almost every week, but some weeks it is pretty easy. But this one was particularly tough.
Yeah, look, just to get straight into it, obviously we've been running for quite a while now, but I inadvertently mirrored the coaches' votes this week. So I've got my one vote as Mitch Georgiades for all the reasons that we've already spoken about. 14 disposals, but again, which is a note that we've brought up in other weeks, is he had 362 metres gained, which I think was in the top third for Port Adelaide players. So his forward craft, fantastic. His effort in the forward line, fantastic. But he's still getting up the field. He's still getting hands on ball. And even he got 4 inside 50s himself. So he had 6 marks, 2 of those contested, 3 goals to go along with his 8 score involvements. My 2 votes goes to old Willem, who was actually my watch from last week. But as we discussed in our line breakdown, had the genuine role on Newcombe, shut him down for half of football. But then on the flip side, had 26 disposals, 18 of which were contested, which I think is clubhouse leader for Port. 4 intercept possessions, 11 ground ball gets, going at 73%. Similar meters gained to George. 1 goal, 1. Why not? 6 score involvements, 8 clearances. This one is really warming to go back to, but 33 pressure acts from Willem Drew, which is by far best on ground. 4 inside 50s and 4 tackles. So just Willem Drew that we know and love. and you can't keep a man like that down for too long. Yeah, unfortunately was the word I was going to say, but more so the fact that one of those games only gets you 2 votes, because 3, 4, and 5 is pretty self-explanatory. I've got JHF in the 3, I've got Rosie in the 4, and I've got Butters with the 5 votes. We all know the impact that they all had on the game. JHF with the 29 disposals, Rosie 28, Butters and 33. Contested possessions, ground ball gets, meters gained through the roof, disposal efficiency, just the whole gamut. Pick a stat and you know they're going to be there and thereabouts, leading us for the team. JHF, I mean, yeah, the mix of it, I think I probably played around with a little bit, but yeah, when it all came down to it, Rosie probably above JHF because he actually put the score on the board. But I thought, it's one of the more closest 3, 4, and 5 votes out of those 3 in particular that you'll probably get for all that. They all mount a case for best on ground.
Yeah, which is going to be fun for me getting to mine because we had the same player mix, but not the same order at all, which is interesting, which just goes to show the kind of game it was. So I had Willem in the 1 spot. Obviously, you've gone through the stats, so don't need to go through that again. Again, I had Mitch in the 2 spot. That's
how I had it originally.
Yeah, it's so hard with forwards because you kind of want to, you have to look at it and just try to figure out, but yeah, as you mentioned, his impact up the ground is really low key as well, and then everything he does inside 50, and as I mentioned earlier, just led the forward line in a way that I'm really starting to be really, really impressed with. I had Connor in the 3 spot, and again, like you said, the 3, 4, 5 is just so difficult because they all have a case for being best on ground because they all had an impact in their own way. So I had Connor in the 3 spot, Zach in the 4 spot, and then I had JHF in the 5 spot because I just something about his game and the way he was throwing himself through the watch the replay and throwing himself through the stoppage and really putting his body on the line. And I think he's responded to some criticism in those early weeks. I think it was I can't remember if it was I was listening to I only just listened to snippets of Five or Monday, but I feel like Kane mentioned that Zach and Ken sat down. Zach, HORNE-FRANCIS and Ken sat down and watched some footage together, went through some data, and kind of actually really noted it out. And you can kind of see that it just shows the intelligence of him. I think it came up on another one of the shows that JHF kind of was nose to nose with the player.
I think an article was written as well in one of the papers or websites too. So
yeah. So just his, 637 meters gained for HORNE-FRANCIS is just insane.
That's nuts.
It's staggering that, I mean, the 1 shot on goal he had was admittedly one of his lesser attempts at goal, considering it was one of those ones that you usually expect JHF to just knock through. But other than that,
free kick straight in front.
Yeah, and he did all the hard work to earn
8 or 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, he's operating at 75%, almost 76% disposal efficiency. The 8 inside 50s, good contested possession numbers, the 7 clearances. Like, he was operating all over the field, and again, just his effort in the contest and in the stoppage and in that way I just had to pick someone to be best on field for me, and it was quite difficult because I think Zach's game was he led. They all led with vibes in different ways, and their effort and intent and their intensity and aggression was all very, very well placed for this game. And I appreciated each and every one of their efforts. And it's kind of one of those games you kind of want to give all of them 5 votes, but it's not how it works, folks. So, HORNE-FRANCIS best of field for me, but it's very, very difficult to really split each of them because they all really, the triumvirate of those 3. I think there's a few, I think 7 AFL may have made a post about it, like, this was scary from these 3, and they kind of listed each individual and basically kind of made the case for all of them to be best on field as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look, long may it continue. If we have to deal with this every week, then it means the season's starting to tick back into positive territory again. So, yeah, pretty.
Yeah, and obviously this is Butters' second game into the season, but this type of midfield performance is, in my opinion, maybe it's not the bar, because it's a pretty high bar, but something in that vicinity is what we've expected from the get-go, and it's not something that we've we've been able to display that, us being Port Adelaide Football Club midfield. But you do that most weeks, and that's where we go, like in the preseason. That's where we go. That's what's carrying us to a potentially elimination final spot, because that's scary shit.
Yeah. And the kind of where the opposition puts their attention becomes really, really an interesting question, because I don't think Hawthorn really knew who to target.
Spreading people really thin, aren't you?
Yeah. Because we just, the Hawthorn problems for us to attack were pretty apparent, but it was just like, do you go for, beyond the fact that Connor and halfback might have thrown them for a loop a little bit, it's just like, well, who do you go? JHF, Zach, and then you got Ollie Wines and Willem Drew kind of floating around there. So yeah, and that's what's also crazy, is that this kind of game and Ollie Wines can't get into our votes, because it's just, that's how deep we're running when we're playing that
type of game.
Yeah, playing at this level. So yeah, it's good to see some of the familiar faces from last year's count. I know it sucks sometimes for, trying to get other people in, but that's just the nature of it. Those guys led the way. We don't win the game the way we did without those three playing at an insanely high level. We're talking, over 1,500 metres gained between those three. So, when you get those kind of numbers, you got to give them the plaudits. So, yeah, good votes. Love
Absolutely.
it. Loved reviewing that game, by the way, as well. That's one of those fun ones. In amongst the gather round stuff as well.
Yeah. And I mean, had the game been a little less, fever pitch, it would have allowed us more time to spend on gather round just as a whole, because it was fantastic. We don't really have time for it, but the whole weekend was amazing. A real crown, jewel in the crown of South Australia at South Australian sport. Great finish to it. Great.
Yeah, when we do squads later this week, maybe we'll spend 20 minutes or so just chatting about Gather Round as well. So sign up for the Patreon. Do it through the website, not the Apple app, because it will charge you extra.
Not Apple.
Just do it. Go to patreon.com/thecreate. It's in the show notes, the link for our Patreon. So, just make sure you don't. But yeah, we'll do squads later this week for the upcoming Sydney game, which we're about to have a quick look at as well. And then we'll chat some Gather Round stuff there. Is that what they call a tease in the biz? Anyway, Sydney this week. We've got Sydney, 2:50 p.m. Local time at the SCG on Sunday. Looking like a warm day up in Sydney as well. On Sunday the 20th, maximum of 29 degrees, which being that we're playing at, just after 3 over there. It's probably going to be the hotter part of the day. So not that that's not something we haven't dealt with pretty much for the entire season so far, more or less. So not much of
a hot autumn.
It has, yeah. As all of us dealing with, again, we'll talk about Gather Round on the Patreon show, but it was a hot weekend. Hot weekend for footy. So Sydney coming up. Just to have a quick note on injury lists before we get into the sides and whatnot. But obviously, probably the big one for us this week coming out of the game. And again, a note to mention that Miles Bergman didn't feature in the second half, which probably goes to some of how we had to change up structurally again a little bit in the second half against Hawthorn. But yeah, Miles Bergman is a test. He's been cleared of any structural damage to his knee, which is great to see. But he's just, got a bit of swelling from a knock or whatever on the week. So it's just kind of wait and see how that goes. But I think they're hopeful that he can play this week. But I'm also a little bit concerned that maybe he just misses a week. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, again, the squads show this week. We'll know more if he's in the extended squad or not. The other side of the spectrum, though, for the Sydney Swans, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. The one that's most recent for them, obviously, is Joel Amartey. Left the game against Collingwood on Friday night at Adelaide Oval with a hamstring injury. He's been one of their highlights this year. He's still young, but he's been improving and a focal point for them up forward. He's out for 46 weeks with his hamstring, and then that's obviously not even. We know they lost Errol Goulden, who is just a key part of their ball movement and his elite disposal of it, and as well as his run through the middle they're really missing him at the moment. He's still out for 8 to 10 weeks. Callum Mills is still missing. Tom Papley's missing. Harry Cunningham's missing. Taylor Adams is missing as well. They're missing a lot of key parts of their side. Errol Goulden's the one that's probably the most important in my view. But Tom Papley's certainly actually trying to rank importance. I think Errol Goulden's just a special player. and he's also a Liverpool fan. So got to get that in there. But there's a lot of players missing for Sydney. So just before we get into the lines, are you feeling overly confident after a win against Hawthorn and then seeing that injury list? Because I am.
Yeah, I absolutely am overconfident after a win, and it's funny what football can do week to week, as is always mentioned in sport and in football. A week is a very long time, but it's games like the games against Hawthorn that just fill you with renewed hope and expectation in the season. But I mean, you just went through the injury list, and we just saw what we just saw. So, of course, I'm feeling overconfident. A good record against Sydney at the SCG as well, albeit not the last game we fucking played there. But yeah, I'm very confident, and like it's funny. We went through a period last year where it was looking fairly dire, and I think it was our lead into the finals. We were pegged to win like 2 out of our last 7 games or some shit like that, and I think it went the other way around. And it's just funny now leading into the Hawthorn game. It's like, well, if they drop that one, where are they going to pick up their next win? They go to Sydney at the SCG, and then they got this team and that team and whatnot. But then a powerful win like Sunday turns the expectations around, and all of a sudden, if we knock this game on the head and then the next game on the head, and then all of a sudden, yeah, we're back on level peggings or even getting into the positive side of the ledger. But to cut a long story short, yes, I am excited. I'm keen to come up against Sydney much more than I was Sunday morning just gone, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what, as we've said a lot along the journey of the podcast as well. A week is a long time in football, and yeah, you get a win that shows you exactly what you expect this, or what we hope this Port Adelaide side can do. And going, conversely, if we look at Sydney and just how they've operated so far this year, they're coming off the loss in a big grand final loss. They've had a coaching changeover as well, trying a few different things, and with the injuries, they just haven't been able to get their run going. And just even against Collingwood last week, just watching them, I was watching them while we were recording our squad show last week, which again, listen, sign up for the Patreon for the squad show, because that's where we'll go more in depth into the lines once the squads are released. But yeah, they just don't have. They've got a few of their big, obviously, Chad Warner and Heaney and Rowbottom. They're all great players, but they just operate. They're kind of suffering a little bit of, I think, that malaise we have had, and so we understand it quite greatly. It's just that 1 or 2% off, and it's just not working for them. And losing Joel Amadi, I think Logan McDonald might be available. He was in the VFL last week.
Yeah, I think he's playing in the Magoos from what I heard beforehand. So that's an interesting situation.
Yeah, and I think I was chatting to, and shout out to Donnie from his Donnie's Disposal podcast. I was chatting to him last night. He reckons he'll be back in, but they're kind of sometimes floating between Tom McCartan in the back and forward line. And so he's like, where are they going to put Logan McDonald? So there's a little bit of unknown for what they're doing. And obviously with a young coach, young coach as far as his head coaching experience in Dean Cox. And, they've got that. They're a team kind of in this little, I'm not exactly sure. Their vibes are probably how we felt maybe a week ago. But even though, a week ago we were kind of like, oh, there was some signs against St Kilda. Maybe they're about where we were.
And our entry list is getting shorter, not bigger.
Yeah, whereas
Sydney opposite fortunes.
Yeah, exactly. So my confidence just, when we'll look at their general side and how we can operate against, if we've done the job that we did on Hawthorn, and Sydney, the SCG is a ground that we've, again, apart from the prelim, played okay. Some classic games, whether it be the Elia spoil in the line or whatever. It's just like we have had some decent success up there, and I think our midfield as it's currently operating, it's just again currently just as in the last 48 hours, I just think that's we're better there, and we were better there for 2.5, 3 quarters against St Kilda as well. So we've got a little bit of data now for that. Forward line, since Ollie Lord's come back, operating far better. Back line, again, we've talked about Sava back there has just added a bit more spine to it. I just think across the board, we're actually set up better just on form. again, very, very short form line, but yeah, Sydney just haven't been playing fantastic footy. Their biggest win, I think, is against North Melbourne, and we're still unsure of, North Melbourne kind of fade out of games late anyway. So as we saw in Linddock, again, shout out, we'll talk about that more on the Patreon show. North Melbourne faded late against the Crows. They faded late against Sydney. I don't know if Sydney have had a big moment yet this year, and whereas we have, and shown that our mettle has been tested, and we're actually starting to get some result from it. So I have Sydney tipped in my tips right now, and I don't know if I'll change that, because I do that thing where I tip against Port if I'm like 50-50, but I'm like leaning more to actually just being like, fuck it, I'll pick Port, because I just the confidence is growing, and it grew more as because I looked at their injury list today, and I didn't realize it. I forgot a couple of those guys were missing, so it just kind of buoyed me. Yeah.
But at Sydney, yeah, they're a good club,
have
been for a long time, and they have a culture that's next man in. But just some of the structural changes that kind of enforced, but also Dean Cox kind of likes Tom McCartan playing in a forward line, but I think that's still a bit of necessity as well through, as we mentioned, McDonald's playing in the twos. Now with Amadi being injured, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit, because their back line is quite small, with Joel Hamling, I think, just at first glance being the tallest player. And just their depth being challenged. I mean, they've got Peter Adams coming off the bench too, while still playing Brodie Grundy as first ruck. So that's an interesting call. Just obviously searching for a bit of height across the ground, but definitely players that can be exposed, as we're well aware of. Just like any team in the AFL, you got to pay respect to them. Will they bring, because of the Lord Georgiades combination now, does that force them to put McCartan back and pick a McDonald to come in? Because, we saw what a Georgiades could have quite honestly done to a Caminiti, and still had a great game. But the scope of that, and then, as we mentioned, Lord kicked 3 goals in that game. That was a fairly short back line. Hawthorn obviously tool the back line, but the athletics of it all and the game plan negated that. So yeah, it's just really interesting. And then on the flip side, Amadi's out, they get shorter again. Logan McDonald maybe comes in, that's a maybe. But then, like you mentioned, Asava there, Alir there to keep their tools at bay. And then I guess we're maybe replacing a Bergman. And we've got to bring DBJ in as well to flip-flop between lines. But yeah, just there's question marks everywhere, but opportunities for us to gain an advantage. At the end of the day, though, you got to win the centre battle, and looking at their centre line on paper is still quite strong, albeit without Errol Goulden. But you got the likes of Campbell, Heaney, putting Jake Lloyd on a wing, or at least from a list point of view, he'd be floating, I would imagine. Then you got Grundy, Warner, and Rowbottom. So it's quite formidable. And like I said, you got to pay him respect. And obviously, there's been the showdown letdown in the past, and the Ken Hinkley emotional games. We have to be wary that we don't fall into a lull after a really high-spirited and high-emotion game, which was Sunday just gone. I have faith that we won't, but it's not out of the realms of possibility.
Yeah, we had that, last year when we had the emotional response game against Geelong, and then, at the time, it felt like the Hawthorn game, it felt like a letdown, but then as it turns out, it actually may not have been. So it's not even a great straight comparison. But yeah, you're right. They are formidable. Brodie Grundy, clearly, he's had a long career, but up and down at times, but he's been in reasonable form the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Warner and Rowbottom, great players as well. It's for me, just watching a little bit of what I haven't watched too much of them, but just watching a bit the other day, I felt like there was just that there's not quite in sync, and Heaney's not at the level he was last year, I don't think either. He's not nearly at that level. The Gordon miss is just big as that, again, that domino effect, and just purely on form, watching how we've just found something since Butters has come back into the mix. It's just the spine. If you're just looking at pure spine down the middle, I look at going, we've just added guys back in over the last 2 weeks with Asava slotting in as the second down back, Lord slotting as the second down forward, Butters is slotted into the midfield, and it's just added that the spine is clear down the middle for us. And it's benefited everyone around that. And overall, that just, for me, I sit there and go, we, on paper, based on who's available, and that's the unfortunate thing for Sydney, is like if we were full strength against full strength, it's probably a cracking match. It probably is still going to be a cracking match, to be fair. They have the home field. They're probably going to be smarting a little bit, a bit hurt from the results and just the season not starting as well as they may have hoped. But they've played some pretty good. They have played some okay football in the time. They haven't been embarrassed at any point this season just yet. It's just they're slightly off, and that's it's just not all clicking for them. You know, that Riley Bryce have brought in has been a revelation. Although he was a bit quieter last week. Nick Blake is obviously a bit of a cult figure, but yeah, it's just the size. What they're doing with McCartan, Logan McDonald coming back in. Logan McDonald's a clear a talent from the draft. He was a high pick, but he's just had an indifferent last 18 months. So it's just like they've got a lot of things that, I mean, again, we've had those issues at times where you're not sure about people, things are clicking for us, whereas they're losing players. They've got guys that they want in, but that are out for a long time. You know, the fact that they can't even think about Papley for another month and a half and Errol Gordon until somewhere after the bye, that's just two of their biggest players just, you know, not even a factor for a while, and that's a sting when if that's your team, that hurts. If we're missing, you know, we've had a bit of that, but luckily those players haven't been out for too long. But yeah, that's a real sting in the sting for them, and yeah, my confidence is growing, and I hate that, but because as you rightly mentioned, we do have letdown games, but I'm just hoping, and maybe it's just like fool me once, shame on me, fool me however many times, you know, that, or, you know, shame on you for me how many ever times that we've had letdown games. Shame on me because, you know, it's very likely based on history, but just hoping that we can kind of buck that trend a little bit this week, because I'm really, really excited. Suddenly I did say this to you as we're walking across the bridge after the game. I just said, could we be 3-3 by the end of the next week? Like, that would be an amazing, if we can find ourselves at 3-3 after the start we had and leading into Hawthorn with the world against us. I think that's actually an incredible result. And it still stings because you sit there and go, fuck, if we won one of those St Kilda Essendon or both and still done these, then we're suddenly in an incredible position. But being that we can't change what's happened, to get back to 3-3 at this point would be really, really incredible. And we need to put that up in the locker room material or whatever you need to do and go, we've given ourselves an opportunity here with the backs against the wall win against Hawthorn. Opportunity presents itself to get back in the mix really against a side that, you know, we can't disrespect them, but objectively you should be looking and going, look, there's an opportunity here. These guys are missing. That is a benefit to us. We need to, you know, make that advantage count, because it is an advantage when they're missing ball movers like that, dangers like that, and Papley and Amadi, and the ball movers like Gordon. They're missing that. You've got to just go, hey, we've got to play it on its merits and go, that is an advantage to us, and let our dominance, because we are as fit as we could be in the middle, and that's with extreme talent that we have in the middle. We need to make that advantage count, because we've let ourselves down in that department early. We need to make that count.
I agree. Yeah. And yeah, like I mentioned, what's done is done. We can't do any more than getting the ledger back on level pegging. So, yeah, 3-3, you know, preseason predictions at the Hawthorn, after the Hawthorn game, we thought maybe a chance of 4-1. But if we drop it, be 3-2, we're 2-3. That's just where we are.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, like I said, we can't do any more than go 3-3. And that's all they should be focused on. But obviously we've got some room for movement with player availability. So I guess maybe it'd be interesting just to kind of see, as well as that, because the SNFL had the bye because of gather round. So we're going off of old. And sorry, this is more. I'm kind of expecting Bergman to take a week, but then DBJ to come back in. But that's not a like for like. DBJ is not going back in the back line.
I was going to say, some people might fear that'll happen, but yeah.
Yeah, so look, I think unfortunately Berry maybe get a run in the twos. Cochrane may go to a sub, and that'll bring DBJ back in. But then the Bergman, if he does in fact miss a week, that's where the more interesting questions come up. Now, our last SANFL game saw Rory Atkins get 30 disposals and had 6 intercept possessions, which was equal second for the Magpies. But there is also a Dylan Williams who had, is it 18 disposals? Yes, 18 disposals as well, and had 5 intercept possessions. And, you've got the likes of Will Lorenz. Xavier Walsh had a good intercept game against he's just obviously taller, so probably they won't go for him just yet. But it's an interesting question on if Bergman is out, who fills that void for, let's say, a week.
Yeah, because I mean, Dylan Williams, when he came in, that year that he suddenly got into the side and never left the side again, was, he's almost become a forgotten man again in the fact that he just hasn't even been close to selection, it seems at times. But that opportunity may present itself. Obviously, as you mentioned, Rory Atkins is a seasoned campaigner as far as an AFL player goes, and the steak knives in the deal or whatever it may be. But he might just, necessity breeds opportunity for a player that may not be sure he's going to see the AFL field, but he's certainly got the experience. If that's what we're looking for, someone to come in that's not going to, he's. I was at the opening Sandford game against Glenelg, Atkins looked in fit and good form, like the Sharp. So whether talent wise, he's obviously not going to be a starter if we're a fit, but I wouldn't be uncomfortable with him coming in. It'll be a really intriguing selection as far as that goes, and we'll have more to say on that once we see it on the squad show on Patreon later in the week. But it sets up as an intriguing proposition if Bergman does indeed be out. And just reading the tea leaves of how they talked about it, they're pretty happy that he's cleared any structural issue, but it didn't seem overly confident that he's going to be available this week. So it may just be a fairly decent knock. And with someone like him who relies on his power and his strong overhead leaping ability, like you just can't have him out there. I know he gave it a run again in the game on the weekend, but he was, I think he got beaten by, did he get beaten by Sicily in a contest afterwards? And, whether that's
he did, yeah,
possibly going to happen anyway, but, whether he's...
I think after he came back on, though.
It was, yeah. So whether he was a bit sore...
I remember correctly.
Yeah, I could just be making it up just to suit my narrative that he wouldn't have been beaten.
Me too. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, but, I just seem to... Yeah, I agree with you that I reckon he's missing the week. So, yeah, is going to necessitate some change there. And Bergman's a big miss, both for what he can do down back as well as generating going forward. So, yeah, will be an intriguing selections this week. What's your overall prediction for the game, though, with all that in mind?
I think we win. But you mentioned we were talking about letdown before, and we mentioned leading up to the Essendon game that you'll know how the game's probably going to go early, and we did, and it didn't go that well in the end. So I'm hoping that that's fresh enough in the mind, and then being buoyed by the Hawthorn game as a whole holds us in good stead coming up against a side who is damaged and tapping into their depth. So you got to take advantage of teams when they're in that situation. So look, they're a proud club. It is their home ground. They'll have an extra day on us recovery wise. Doesn't make that much difference in my opinion, but it's always put up there. So it's going to be a battle, particularly in the centre, but I'm predicting a close win. From a selection point of view, assuming Bergman has a week off, I'm picking DBJ to come in, and I'm gonna go Dylan Williams in, and that would obviously mean Bergman out, and I'm going Joe Berry to drop out and just play a whole game because he hasn't in the last couple of weeks, and Cochrane to unfortunately go back to sub. That's my early selection prediction as well.
Yeah. As far as the result goes, I'm as I mentioned off the top of the preview here, I've just gotten overly confident all of a sudden. Even in the last 24 hours, when I was talking to Donnie last night, I was still like, oh no, but it is just now I've more looked into it more. I've seen those names that are missing, and I'm probably getting overly confident. But yeah, I think in what will be a reasonably close fought game, I think we can just win by, maybe my standard 21 points. Just would be nice. Like if we can go up to Sydney and just win by like a score that we just can break.
That'd be comfortable in my opinion.
Yeah.
That'd be a comfortable win.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ever comfortable inside 50 points these days. I'm scarred by so many different comebacks and different
football. Yeah,
just different sports I watch that the unfathomable happens to my team. Why is this happening to me? So yeah, and selections wise, I'm intrigued by the idea of Atkins, but I feel like Ken loves. I do think he does like Dylan Williams, even if he hasn't been able to find a place for him. And whether just for system wise and the fact he's been in the system longer, whether he gives him a run. If Bergman is out, and I do think we both expect him to be out, that's just where I'm leaning at the moment as well. Would take a fairly big effort over the next day and a half for him to suddenly put himself into contention based on how I'm reading the tea leaves of their report on his knee. Yeah, I like the idea of Dylan Williams coming back in just because as a person that's been around Port Adelaide for a while, and I remember going to Sandford games 5 years ago when he's kicking goals, and now then watching him come in and reinvent himself as a defender. I just want to see him get a bit more of a run. Not if it's we've got the horses that are better than him, but if necessity breeds the opportunity for him, I want to see him get the run ahead of Atkins. As much as it's not like it's an anti-Crow thing or anything like that. But it's just like he hasn't been in the system as long. He was part of a trade. Would love him to get if he does get an opportunity because of injuries, then yeah, I'll absolutely support him. But I think Williams is the one that's been in longer, still shows good form at times. So I just think he's the one that should come in, unless Atkins is showing something that's absolutely, I just think if Rosie does continue to range off halfback as well, like he provides that experience and leadership down there. So you can have him lead with Williams as well. So. And then obviously DBJ back will be nice because I think he's had an okay start to the year as well, considering the form we've been in. So yeah, somewhat unlucky to be suspended, but also we kind of understood the modern landscape begrudgingly as we do at times. It is still just what it is. So yeah, can't wait though. It's really really nice to be just having a review that. I was a little bit fearful at times last week of what this review would be, though I will say, and we'll talk about the gather round a little bit more on the Patreon show, just standing there on the hill on Sunday as the sun was going down, there was kind of like a cotton candy pink in the sky, and weather was just nice. I was nursing a hangover, but just sipping my gin and tonic, I just felt a calmness, and I don't know if that was I don't believe in anything higher than just humanity, but it's just like for some reason the calmness came over me, and the game that ensued, I actually wasn't calm at times, but it's just like I didn't feel as despondent as I thought I would standing on the hill, and maybe it was just a hangover took away my ability to even feel despondent. But yeah, it was a really nice evening, and ultimately we went on one. So maybe there's just something in the air that made me feel a subconscious confidence on the night, and it's really nice to be back feeling a bit better about Port Adelaide footy and chatting about it, and really appreciate you obviously hanging out on the night and getting to experience that win together, and then getting to chat about it here on the podcast. It's been great, and hopefully we're back this time next week with another win to talk about.
I desperately hope so. Can you take me higher? How many times can we give that song a run?
Oh, the stings are coming. I just haven't had time this week because of all the stuff.
No, the Instagram posts, did me well enough.
Yeah, that might become a theme that it's just depending on win or loss, it's going to be Creed one way or the other now. I think. But yeah, no, can't wait to be back here this time next week reviewing hopefully another win. Nothing more to say. Again, sign up for the Patreon. It's now $5.99 a month if you sign up to the basic. I do have now a sponsor one that's more expensive. You essentially get the same stuff, but you'll get some extra special merch, and it just helps if you do have the means to support us even more and help us improve the product. But certainly not an expectation. It's just there if you have the means and want to support. But even if at $5.99, it still does support us as well. So either way, we appreciate it. And so patreon.com/thecreed. Links are in the show notes for that as well. Again, sign up through the website. If it's charging you more than the $5.99 or $19.99 for the sponsor tier, anything different than those prices means you're in the wrong spot, because it shouldn't be more than that for you. If you're getting charged a few bucks more, that's you're on the Apple app or whatever, and it's trying to charge you more, which all goes to Apple. We get none of that. So yeah, that's about it from me. Jamie, cheers to you as always. Up the fucking
Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Yeah. See you at the footy.